All right, all right. Let me get us another little view here. Here we go. That's a little bit better. Welcome to episode 10 here of the Metaverse Nomads. And this is an awesome episode that we've got put together for you here. As you can see, there are 6 of us. It means we have the whole band back together. I'm Jesse, also known as Whitticus of the Guild Rome. We've got Bonafide back. He's been absent for the past month, so it's good to have him back here. We got Fancy Hat, who's always here with us, as well as Banjo, Ray, and Andrew.
Hello,
so
hello.
we've got a full house. What's happening, guys?
We're just hanging in. We're hanging in there, guys.
Yeah, sweet.
Another week down.
It is another week down. I believe we're about 2.5 months deep now of doing these weekly as Metaverse Nomads. Of course, we were doing it prior as with our Miranda stuff, but now as we're here as Metaverse Nomads, we have been deep diving regularly into Star Atlas, and we also cover some other stuff. And we've been covering Illuvium, we've been covering Axie, and we're going to save that for the end of this episode so that we can dive right into Star Atlas. It's been a big week, whole lot of stuff to cover. This week we saw everything from a trailer released. We actually got to register and choose our faction, as well as ship drops. There was 2 ships that dropped, and the word is that going forward, pretty much every few days, there will be another ship drop leading up to the minigame launch. And so, with that, a good place to start really here is the Star Atlas teaser trailer. Now, not the teaser trailer, excuse me. We saw the teaser trailer originally. It was a short clip, didn't last too long. And now the extended version has been released. So we're going to go ahead and play that now, and then we'll have a bit we can talk about.
The station reported a distress signal last night. They think it came from your dad's ship.
The signal, it came from past the outer ring. How is that even possible?
His ship has been reported missing for 20 years now. Pretty sure he's not coming back.
We go there, we might not come back.
What is this place?
This is going to change everything. They found out we have the map. They're gonna kill us for it.
If that's the case, there's only one thing we can do.
All right. Right? Yeah, good stuff, man. What did you guys think?
That cinematic music in the back, man, it sets the tone. If it wasn't for that, just like in all other videos, it's just the music. So captivating.
Yeah, and the ship as well. The Floyd, I think we refer to it as, it's just looked great, honestly, throughout that video.
I need that camouflage ship, the one that came out of the asteroid. That was amazing.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a bounty hunter ship, based on what we heard in some separate chats on the Discord. So if that's the bounty ship, I think there's going to be a lot of people buying in. I'm one of them.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. I'll have to follow you on that one.
Speaking of the Star Atlas Discord, for those of you that are a part of the Discord, you want to also probably want to figure out how to go ahead and get a nitro boost so that you can be a part of the foundation room, because there's a lot of stuff dropped in there, stuff that we can't even show you, and I wish we could. And some of the cool stuff that relates to things that we've even seen within that video there, such as ships. Like one of the things was shared with us, and I'm sure we can share this, is that ship you saw that would look like an asteroid, there's actually going to be a ship like that. Don't know who's going to make it, but Yeah, so if you want some sneak peeks and you really like this project, not only do you want to be a part of the Star Atlas Discord, but if you boost the server, you get access to a special channel that drops some pretty cool nuggets in there.
So if I could, in that video, Jesse, there was something that was said that I just caught for the first time after viewing it this time. Somebody tells the female alien, your dad's ship. Did anyone catch that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't catch that the first time around. So this is a daughter looking for her father in some sound.
And based on that lore, and that's the other thing too, they've done such a good job with like planting the seeds for lore. His ship supposedly went missing 20 years ago. So they're saying there's no way that could be like a beacon or anything from his ship. That's just been gone too long.
Right.
So pretty interesting. So outside of that, that video, I grabbed a couple screenshots, and this one is just always, I love how they open with this here, because it just says a lot about how the team, the development team there, and the people that are putting together the lore and the experience, they really want you to connect with it. And so that's why every time I see this and the way they put together the eyes for this are just pretty epic.
Yeah, I think if this is a representation of what's coming with Unreal Engine 5, and I think that's probably the case, we're in for a treat. I mean, there's no doubt with some of the screenshots we've seen, and I know this isn't in-game or in-engine,
right?
But at the same time, some of the pictures we have seen have been pretty close to this, and yeah. This is the first time that I got really, really jazzed about what's possible when you can see, if you see this level of realism come to life inside the game. It's a behemoth. No one's going to be able to stop it.
Yeah, and there's going to be a lot more alien races to come. I'm really excited about that. In the faction selection page, it talked about the Sogmian race, the Myres, which is the bounty hunter picture you saw last week, and the Punab and Fotoli, which obviously we've talked about a lot on this show.
Yeah, that bounty hunter does look pretty cool. I still don't know what the ships are in the background there. They ended up not being the F4s, but yeah, it looks. Still haven't seen exactly what that one is.
Do you think this is the same race as the blue alien?
No, I don't think so. No. Yeah. It would be interesting to see how many options we have and like what type of similarities we can expect between them. Like, will some be completely different? So the Fotoli and the Myres, they look quite opposite ends of the spectrum, to be honest. I really wonder how the Fotolis are going to work into the gameplay.
And especially if these are creatures that are light beings. I mean, I still get back to that question, like, why do they need a ship?
Yeah, I agree. If they can travel, or they light beings, why can't they just travel over light, right? So
right. Now go ahead and pull that back up, Fancy.
Okay, cool.
What'd you have? Yeah, what is this guy?
It's the Fotoli, just one of the ones we've had in the past. It's not lighting up this time. But...
So this is a pretty cool shot from the trailer, and basically it's showing all three of the represented factions all together. And again, you can choose a faction within the game and you're kind of locked into that faction, but that does not mean that you can't choose any of the other races. You're open to choose whatever race you want, regardless of which faction you choose. And so this is a pretty cool screenshot that basically shows the Oni, Mud, and Ooster all together in a single shot. So this was pretty cool.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about this is the Ooster with no helmet.
Yeah, right. that opens up some interesting possibilities for him just sitting out there in space.
Yeah, they'd be able to like do great maintenance work on a ship, just like chilling out on the outside, no spacesuit.
Yeah, it's more fashionable than having, I guess, a dome on your head.
Well, he can take an X4 pretty much anywhere he wants then.
Right. And when it comes to the fashion statements that we're going to probably see down the line as the game develops, I'm wondering too, like for any headgear, is this going to be an issue? Or maybe depending on if you're going to be in outer space or just within a certain dome that has oxygen in it for any organic life?
I think they said there's going to be shields or something like that. Like around the X4. I believe that's what they were saying.
Another interesting thing about the Ooster is thinking about how they've been talking about food in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
How's that going to apply to them? Because if they don't need a helmet, they don't need food. That sounds quite overpowered. There must be some drawbacks. If I was designing it, I think I'd make like power their main supply.
A little power battery packs.
Plug them in for 30 minutes.
Yeah, if you like the Borg, they just have the little wall the little wall section. They just power down and just chill on the wall for a bit.
Get an oil change.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll be selling my Armstrong spacesuit to any oosters soon, right?
Probably not.
Right. So this is an interesting shot here because for the longest time, based on the teaser trailer before, the question we kept asking was like, is this diamond that's out there, is this a metaphorical diamond? This meaning like there's this planet that's got a whole bunch of little diamonds and some great resources. But what this kind of hints to is that this planet very well may be just one big ass diamond. I don't know, what do you guys think?
Yeah, it was great. I really loved like the sand texture or granules just rolling along, revealing it. I thought that was just really cleanly rendered.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I just want to make a note on the diamond. So it's going to be a resource, obviously, that's going to be more valuable than any other, way more scarce, as they're mentioning it as being only one planet or a big rock in the sky somewhere. But I'm sure you'll be able to find it. It's just going to be very hard to come by. And when you do find it, you'll probably be able to accelerate development, and there'll be many benefits when it comes to that.
I don't think it's diamond, just because I think it's the oosters. If you look at the resources that they have access to, one of them is diamond.
Right.
I think it's. I'm assuming it's going to be a 10th resource. That's like probably a special resource that you can use maybe in lieu of certain resources potentially. As a way to get around it.
Yeah, one of the things this snapshot also shows is the potential for life support, right? So we got our wristband on. Looks like she's got either 6 hours and 2 minutes or 6 minutes and 2 seconds. But there's going to be a component of being out, outside of your spaceship in a spacesuit where you have to manage your survivability.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, interesting. It's got 3 meters there in the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I hope it's days, hours, and minutes, not the other way around.
You better hurry, buddy.
Yeah, 6 minutes. Look, we just found this. All right, guys, let's go back to the ship.
That's why he probably drops to his knees, because he just realized he doesn't have enough time.
I'm out of time.
Michael in chat brings up a good perspective. He talks about securing the entire planet. And I think that's going to be something that's Eve level, history, right? When you've got 2 of the biggest tiers going after this planet, trying to control it from a resource perspective. That's going to be something that makes news outside of the metaverse, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I imagine it as like a game of like capture the planet. See how long you can hold it for.
And think of the risks, right? If you don't capture it or you lose everything.
And the expense to maintain it. I mean, you're going to be constantly getting assaulted if you were to take something that valuable, right? How do you guys hear me? Am I decent now?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
And with just holding the land, even you're paying taxes on it, whether you utilize the land or not.
Right. It's interesting you say that, Jesse, because we asked Michael in that foundation room about DAO outside of safe space and medium space, and he said there is no DAO outside of that area. So I don't know if there will be taxes outside here, except for maybe the Metaverse DAO, but there won't be a faction DAO or a regional DAO here.
Yeah, I think the repairing might make up for it, though. If you're constantly getting bombarded, then you're going to be you're going to need a few technicians or engineers out there as well.
But what do you think about that then? So when land sales come up, that basically suggests, at least to me, that land can only be purchased in the safe and middle zone. Because what will be the point of purchasing land in the deep space zone if there's no form of governance and there's no way to even maintain keeping it because it could be taken from you at any time? Yeah.
So my train of thought on that is, if you have a DAO already established and there's a structure, then maybe that's going to be what's going to govern the people that you have in your guild to operate in a way where you can self-impose a tax, and it could be at any percentage, like Wagner said. It could be it's no bars, no hold bars when you're out there, and we'll see how everyone kind of grows out in deep space if that's where they plan on staying. But when it comes to the diamond planets or the resources or whatever it's going to be out in deep space, whoever finds it, they have to, in my opinion, weigh the benefits versus the pros and cons, because if word spreads or you're able to get some resources out of it, then you're gonna want to stay there and control the area. And if you're not going to be able to do that, then it's probably not worth even putting anything on their land claims, state claims, or anything, and trying to protect it with your resources. So although people might know where these planets are with these resources, I don't think anyone's just going to do a mad dash to it and try to set it up, because it's going to be highly risky. And we'll see.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, like, what kind of counterintelligence operations will be in place. For example, if someone is able to find out what this resource looks like on chain, and they're monitoring for wallets that have it, all of a sudden, then it becomes less of an immediate secret when all of a sudden you have people that know where you are and where you found this. So yeah, I'd say the first people that find it, load up your bags, man. Get as much as you can, because once it's widely known, it's going to be a highly contested region.
Yeah, it sounds like a solid business plan, just waiting around outside. Sorry.
Well, Michael in chat brings up another great point around how do you offload the product without people seeing it even within the in-game economy, right? So if you have all this resource and you're trying to, well, either are you going to store it or are you going to sell it? I think there might be a value in storing it and using it for your own industry, and then it becomes less visible. However, like you said earlier, it's going to be on the chain somewhere.
Yeah. Right.
That's the thing about it is, I was looking at Michael's comment as well, but you had a good point there, Jesse, just to kind of co-sign on it. It's like, how are we going to be, what's the level of secrecy we're going to be able to maintain when we're talking about a open public ledger, right? So that's an interesting concept.
So this is another shot, and this one actually intrigued me the most, because most people, based on the comments that I saw, they said, did you see there's this biome where like people can grow stuff? And it's like, if you look at this now, this is a beach. Yeah. There's an island there. Those are boats. Yeah. Those are people chilling. They're on vacation.
There's 2 suns in that solar system, or that planetary system.
So that's pretty cool. If you can, and I don't know what size ship. What do you guess this is? I mean, you think this? It didn't look from the outside as large as a Titan. But it certainly wasn't like capital ship size. It looked about 50 times that size.
Like maybe
Commander. I think this is a spaceship.
Commander?
It's a space station, rather. I think this is what
space station
will look like. Right.
That makes sense. But pretty cool. I mean, can you imagine? I love the idea that they're thinking this way, to where, imagine you're out in deep space, but you know what? You're going to go chill at your space station, which is basically a tropical island with a reef.
like a resort station, basically, right? Or you have a resort inside of your space station.
Yeah. You got like a pool over there on the side, and
it's going to be like
bungalows.
It's going to be like Disneyland in Orlando, where they just have the different kingdoms. It's just different sections. It's like you have the resort area, and you got the workstation area, the residential area.
Got Survivor Island over here.
That could be harvesting algae. It could be harvesting fish. It could be creating oxygen. It could be serve a lot more purpose than just leisure as well.
All right. Yeah, cool shot for sure. Mm-hmm. This here just kind of shows, like, on this same space station, that, you know what, and I think the same is going to be the case for, I know, the same for land, is that you are going to be installing defense. There's going to be lots of things that can come your way, including, as you'll see here shortly, one of the 2 new ships is designed for destruction of your land claims and your mining operations. And so you're probably going to want to be stacked with your mining operations and your space stations with some heavy artillery like this here. So this was a pretty cool shot that just showed how this station had some defenses.
I'm trying to understand the scale there. So how big are those, do you think, based on the video? Do you think they're, the size of a 5-story building, or do you think they're the size of a 100-story building?
Oh, I mean, the guns right there, I'm guessing that's probably like 15 meters high, or maybe something like that.
Smaller than,
for sure.
Yeah, the smaller end.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but still big and powerful nonetheless. And it's even hard to understand from this picture. Like, Is this an energy-based weapon, or is this shooting projectiles? Yeah.
Heavy duty, nonetheless.
Exactly, right? So this was a shot that obviously stirred up a lot of conversation. It's where we saw that, and you know the name of it, Fancy. What was the name? Not the ship where you see here lit up, but the one that just passed it that's got the 2 sets of thrusters.
It said Floyd on the side, so I called it Floyd.
Yeah, and it said Floyd, and then it also said something like transport or something like that. It had some name that kind of gave us an idea of what it did. But we haven't seen this line of ships yet, so I think it's kind of a sneak peek. And whether or not that ship will be within the game, when Michael Wagner was asked, was this actually in game? And of course, it's not. This is cinematic. But he said that there's some things that are in this that are going to be easily transported into Unreal Engine 5. And then also when asked if this asteroid, this rock here, was actually going to be a real ship, the answer that we received was yes. So that's kind of cool. And as you stated, Banjo, you think this is going to be potentially a bounty hunter ship.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my speculation.
Yeah, I might have a whole new career here now if that's the case. Because I can't imagine just hiding in asteroids and being able to pop out. I mean, I'm won over right now.
When I buy mine, it's going to be named Alcatraz.
Can you imagine that, man? You got a bounty out on you. People are like, how'd they catch you, man? Like, what happened was
you cast this rock. Hey, Jesse, there's a good question around space stations in chat there from Harmony Payne. And really it's around, can you own whole space stations or buy land inside of it? And what we do know, I think, right now is that you will have your space station that lives above your mining claim. Mm-hmm. But then we also know that the devs are making 3 tailored space stations. One is like a Council of Peace space station. One is the Underworld station. I can't remember what the third one is. Maybe one of you can chip in. But it seems like there's going to be a combination of industry type space stations and maybe some of these more elaborate big space stations that we saw in the video.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a political space station, like you said. It's going to be a black market style space station, and then the last one is going to be more economical, where you can have your storage, your refineries, or where you can refine your materials, trade hubs, stuff like that.
Yeah, it'd be exciting. And I wonder if they'll add more on over time. Will that be part of an expansion pack, or will players be able to build up to that level of an experience that we saw in the video, or is that only something that's created by the devs? I'm hoping it's the former and that people can build aspirationally to that level.
Right. Well, what we do know now is that a lot of the structures that we'll eventually be able to buy, we know what some of them are simply because they were given away as poster rewards, and that includes space stations, it includes mine operations, the power that supports these mine operations, things like that. And we also know that there's between 1 and 5 tiers. We don't know if eventually there'll be more than that, but we know that now, because of these rewards, that some people can start at a tier 5. Now, that suggests that for those of us that don't have all the way up to tier 5, maybe you have tier 1, 2, 3, you can most likely continue to upgrade that. And so I don't know we don't know what the requirements are for upgrading that yet, but there seems to be a progression for how you can increase your space station or your mining operation.
Yeah, I remember from the beginning when they were first talking about space stations, there was this idea that we would be able to build it and do whatever we want. So just commenting on System Search here, hoping there would be player run and build space stations. Me too, man. Like that's got to be the goal, right? Is for you to be able to build your own cities to be able to interact with the rest of the system, you know?
I think we can count on that. I think and at the end of the day, that's, I think, what is most attractive to me about the whole Star Atlas project. And that is that they aren't just building a game where you can just jump in and earn with blockchain. There's a few things that are converging. There's the fact that they're looking at creating the metaverse. They're looking at, it's a part of their game plan to actually arrive at a place where it is so community driven that they may actually get pushed out at some point as developers, and they mention that quite often. So they're really paving the road. They're laying the foundation for what all of this can become. And as I've mentioned many times before, I could see a day where you're in your Star Atlas spaceship, but you travel to a planet that is Axie or Illuvium, or or many of the other things that are being developed as a part of the metaverse. So this whole foundation that's being built is pretty amazing. And there's going to be opportunity for people to not only build a space station. There's going to be people that don't want to aspire to do that, but they want to be like, Quark and was it Deep Space Nine? I think is it.
Oh yeah.
He's a bartender. That's what he does. He runs that, and he's also obviously like a counselor, psychologist. So he's talking to people and stuff. But it's cool that you could do that or have just a nightclub.
I think he was a smuggler too, if I wasn't mistaken. So there's that opportunity as well.
I always felt like he was a millionaire next door type. Like he was doing all kinds of stuff.
Jesse, as I look at this picture, I'm thinking I may have been looking at the ONI wrong. We've been talking about stealth as it relates to ONI as something that makes your ship disappear. But what if it disguises it as an asteroid? What if that is the stealth component? It's not just about an image that shimmers away. It's this thing that looks like something else entirely.
Yes. Yeah. So to that point, I was thinking if we're going to be able to customizable parts and even skins that would, or the technology itself that could even keep us hidden or off the radar, right? Because we could just simply hide behind one of these massive asteroids instead of needing to look like one. And then if we're not on the radar, somebody wouldn't see us depending on the direction they go. So what stealth looks like, it's kind of threw us this little clip here threw us for a curveball here, because it could be more than just one thing when it comes to stealth, the way we traditionally see it.
We're also making an assumption that this is a bad guy. What if this is the girl's father who has a stealth ship, and now all of a sudden he's following her? So it's easy to say it's a bounty hunter ship, which is what I want, but this could be a good guy too.
Yeah, and it's the other thing too, is that as it was sitting there, it's clearly has scanning technology. So that's another thing. You could actually camp out and be collecting data, because as this ship passed, it's like obviously it was already on its radar, because now that it's passed, now it's going to stealthily follow behind it and track it. Pretty cool.
Great.
You're going to wait for the memes, actual like motherships where people are flying up to like, that's no moon. Quick, just fly away.
All of a sudden, the moon has a Death Star opening up.
But without a doubt, to what Jess was mentioning just a minute before, as we see in the sandbox, even Nifty Island that's currently in development and building out, there's going to be so much interoperability of just game assets and maybe what they look like. And then, but also there's going to be locations within these metaverses that go in and out of each other. So you'll definitely be seeing, a freaking Axie planet, or a place where you can only have like cyberkongs, with their jungle planet, and pick a project. And if they're going to work with Star Atlas in some way or develop their game to be that type of, that type of project where they can just go in and out and swap assets, then it's going to be a fun ride.
And also to go back on what Jesse was saying, when you were mentioning decentralization, I'm a big fan of that. And that's what actually has me the most bullish on this project over others. Is I'm always a fan when the dev team wants to let go of the project at some point. And that's what they're working towards. The end goal is to give the project away to the people. That's always a better sign than people who are kind of ambiguous about whether or not they want to let it go at some point, because that's always going to be a central point of failure later if they didn't actually give it up to the community.
Right. Speaking of which, that they do want to give it to the community, it's a hat tip to you guys, Star Atlas, for the way that you guys focus on lore, the way that you keep the community informed, because there's a lot of projects that just don't. And me being someone that's been known as being critical of other projects, I continue to be pleased with the way they show up and the way that we see, the CEO, Michael Wagner, pop up on a lot of different shows. And the thing that stood out on one of the last shows that he was on was that, he does not shy away from the tough questions and being interviewed by a group. So this is an absolute shout out to you, Mr. Wagner, that we want you on this show. We want to share thoughts and ideas about what we think's to come. We want to hear from you about what you have planned. So that's definitely something that we want to be a part of the show, is to have you on here so that we can all powwow together.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
What do you think of that question that George Wilson put down in the screen there? Has anyone given any thought to what diplomacy means for ONI? It is considered a strength or a perk.
So when I saw that originally, I was a bit, I was confused at first because it wasn't the traits that we saw. But if you think about it, scanning technology and stealth tech, they are kind of just rolled into one technology, and they added diplomacy. So perhaps they thought ONI needed a buff somehow. Like, it is a big group of different races communicating with each other and participating. So I imagine they would be quite good at diplomacy.
It makes perfect sense. I mean, if you think about it. So if you look at the other two factions, you have AI. So that is one collective mind. There's not a whole lot of diplomacy needed for their communication with each other. With humans, heck, we know our history. We're messy. And then you look at a consortium of aliens. They've had a long time to figure out how to coexist. And so you would expect that would give them a boost to diplomacy. So this is just one of those things, again, that feels well thought out. And I just simply think that it means in some ways, and maybe not a component in minigame, because again, that's mostly ship missions, but at some point, a bonus in maybe trade negotiations with NPCs. I don't know how that plays out with, with other players, but maybe NPC. Yeah, there you go, right there.
Well, it could also be, diplomacy with your crew and how you interact and morale with your crew. Mm-hmm. It could be, well, I think going back to what you said a second ago, Jesse, about humans, it's interesting that there's this group of aliens who've somehow found peace with each other, and then you've got this warring faction of humans who refuse to, party with the aliens, so to speak. But I think there's a lot they could do here. Maybe there's a discount on polis and governance within different DAOs with the ONI. I think there's a lot they can do, and I would bet that they haven't figured it all out yet. I mean, where they're at in the development.
I would like a 0.01 buff to my governance.
Yeah,
extra polis staking rewards.
Yeah,
there we go.
Awesome. Well, what we got up next is it's along the way, one of the things that happened during the poster rewards was that we were given a pilot's license and a captain's license. And the pilot license allowed for 2 or greater crew member vessels to be piloted, and the captain, I think, was 3 or more. As happens in projects like this, and this is another thing, again, a hat tip to Star Atlas, is that I love the way that they pivot and they make adjustments. And so because they took that initial pilot license and captain license away, what they did is they swapped it out. So anyone that had those is going to get if you had the pilot license, you're going to get this collectible, which is a legendary pilot, Sammy Banks. There's going to only be, I guess, 3,200 or 3,025 of them available. This is a crew member. And they included some lore with him here. It says, Sammy Banks comes from a humble heritage of terra farmers. As he grew more interested in the expansion of his family's agricultural foundation, he spent many lonesome hours as an aerospace scout in search of new extraterrestrial plots to cultivate. He also has a fascination for engineering of vessels, particularly focused on moon-based data validation. As a MUD academic trainee, Sammy was almost immediately tested out of all flight courses. He was the only surviving member of the now infamous FOUL-IO party from the Tufa ambush circa 2613. His survival was fully credited by his maneuvering skills and with all of his practical experience of piloting, course plotting, and now a certified MA grad pilot. Not sure what MA is here. His celebrity amplified across the MUD faction as a verifiable pilot of legend, exclusive crew member that you can assign to a pilot role on your ship. So as we know, ships are going, and we're going to actually talk about this in a moment, and we have some slides dedicated to it. Ships can hold a certain number of crew. There's a minimum number that's required to fly it. And fortunately, when we get these ships, as Wagner likes to say, is they come with a full tank of gas, and they're also going to have the necessary crew so that you can just take your ship and go. But guys like this, we don't know what the buff is yet, but Sammy Banks a legendary collectible is most likely going to give you a significant buff. What do you guys think of Sammy here?
I think Sammy is amazing, and for this reason, because we all know, if you didn't, it's Sam Bankman-Fried, who is the American businessman who is the founder and CEO of FTX exchange, a cryptocurrency exchange, and he also manages assets and of other companies and whatnot. But this was back in 2016, so this is a homage to him, which was pretty cool to see that it's gonna this is him. This is Sam in the flesh in the metaverse. He's gonna be on your ship.
That's pretty awesome.
His origin story sounds a little bit like a certain Luke Skywalker, right? I mean, some guy who leaves the agricultural area to be a pilot.
Right, he was a farmer.
He even has his hair. So if you look up a photo of Sam Bankman-Fried, this is exactly kind of what his hairstyle is. A young, dapper looking fella.
And just on a whim, I went to search for fowl.io to see if that was a little Easter egg there. Yeah. It doesn't take you anywhere. It takes you to some pictures. Looks like somebody put something up that was pretty inappropriate. So if you go, not safe for work.
Don't do it.
Let's take our word for it. Leave it alone.
That's awesome. Or the Tufa ambush circa 2613, man. I'm curious what the lore is behind these things that they mentioned.
Yeah, it is cool. So he started out the week when it dropped into people's inboxes. It was on the marketplace for about 500 USD, and now it's on for 800. So people want him. Let's see if it keeps on going up. I know I'm tempted, but it feels a bit silly buying a crew member, honestly.
Yeah. Well, here's another interesting observation with this guy, and then also the captain we're going to see here next, is that if you look at his face, he's got implants. So this guy is human. He's from the Mud faction, but clearly, 600 years from now, apparently we haven't merged completely with AI. So we're not like the androids, like the Ooster, but yet we are definitely taking advantage, humans that is, of technology, because we're starting to see some screenshots, some of the artwork where you can clearly see that they're enhanced in some capacity.
Mm-hmm. Makes me wonder if the AI had the capability to interact with those enhancements, right? If you think about other IP like Battlestar Galactica, you had this robot or artificial intelligence race that could interact with other systems. I'm wondering if there's something there where they can interact and somehow, I guess, I don't want to say control, but do something with the human modifications.
Right. I would have thought that would have been an interesting buff for Ooster to be able to require fewer crew to pilot a ship. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you think about a lot of the ships that we've seen in previous shows, the AI is the ship, right? So why would you need a crew if you have an AI that's a grand AI like the Borg?
Right. All right. Well, that brings us to the next one. So now, in other words, if you had a pilot's license, as I mentioned before, that is going to be swapped out with Sammy Banks here. But if you had a captain's license, you're going to get Anatoly here. So this is an anomaly collectible, which is right up there with the only things that we can see that are anomalies so far, other than this character here, are like the Titan ship. So this is a big deal. Whoever is getting these here, and I think you got to be tier 3 or higher to be able to within the posters to get the captain's license. But does that sound right?
Yeah.
Captain's license tier 3 superior. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, what do we know about Anatoly here? Well, Captain Anatoly is the most celebrated and decorated captain of the Mud faction. So it's interesting. Both of these come from the Mud faction. Her strict upbringing under a faction-accredited boarding schools caused her to divert from her elected career into interplanetary hospitality, and instead sought a fate in the ship races. Within a year, Anna was crowned prime champion of the tri-faction circuit and held that status for 3 years. So she's a badass. She used that experience to start her own racing and development team called the Sola Protocol. Under her leadership, the team discovered new breakthroughs that shaved minutes off of the long-established galactic records on the most popular courses. Anna quickly realized her calling as a leader and returned to captain's training at Mud Academy. Her aptitude for the training was unprecedented, and Mud Academy's captain's curriculum required an update to her account for her anomalous abilities. Exclusive crew members that you can assign to a captain's role on your ship containing 3 or more crew stations. And there's only 72 of these. So in all of, can you imagine, like if you're fortunate enough to get them, I wish I was, I think you'll be able to share what they're going for in the secondary market there, Fancy. But 72, a year or two down the road, this is going to be a pretty special collectible character.
For sure.
So do you guys think there's going to be Star Atlas racing leagues, like racing teams?
Absolutely.
That's their entire motive is to race in Star Atlas. I think it makes sense from like a esports thing, right?
Yep. I think it's going to be a wagered competition. Absolutely.
Yeah, so at the beginning of the week, someone put a ask down for 28,500 USDC, and that's still there. And a couple people undercut 24K now. So,
oh man, you're really undercutting them.
Yeah, she's another one that's got those facial enhancements there. She's got some stuff going on.
I think so far we've learned that obesity is no longer a thing in the metaverse. No fat humans.
And they passed on doping. They just do full-on electronic enhancements now.
That part, right? Maybe not even eating, you're just injecting your nutrients direct, right? So no need for the BS. I like what Michael said here. Want to immediately change direction of your mothership? Buy Anatole. She basically cheats.
Cool. All right, so that brings us to one of the big announcements this past week, which is there were 2 new ships that were dropped. And what's kind of cool about these ship drops is that it was also made known that all of the ships that we saw, I mean, there's no guarantee that all of them, but most likely the ships that we saw in the GAL and that brochure for ships that was passed out, almost a month ago, we will see new ships every few days. And I know we have some of our favorites that we're waiting on. I know that we picked some of these up throughout our guild, which is the Roan Guild. This is the Bomber. And another thing that happened, and we actually have this now for all of the ships that have already been released, is we have this little spec chart now where we can see their available supply, their rarity, how many crew slots, module slots, component slots, all of that stuff. And we'll be able to go over each of those. But this one here is actually fascinating. It's a bomber. This is the Thimble. It's a supplier of exotic spacecraft that fits a need no other manufacturer can deliver. Their ECOS line of ships holds the namesake of the righteous environmental faction known as the Earth Conscious Ontological Society. The Grenadier is fueled through sustainable bioproducts of biodynamic agricultural harvest. This thing runs on French fry oil.
Soybean oil.
Yes, it's an undying quest to propagate the only true biome of humankind. The ECOS bomber ship gives might to the cause with highly destructive, low-orbit space bombs that rain down destruction on any well-defended industrial sprawl. Now, here's the key interesting point here. Once these structures are terrorized, the bomb's aftermath releases terraforming compounds to restore to nature what was lost through the greedy pursuit of mineral riches. This thing is actually planting trees as it wreaks havoc on someone's mining operation.
It seriously speaks to my hippie soul.
Right?
I love that shit.
We're here in peace.
Right. So I'm thinking, could we use these ships to do what you just mentioned without needing to attack anyone first? I'm thinking so. So you can just populate a planet's void resource, and then just populate it, and then eventually, I don't know how long it takes. What's the timeline on everything that's needing to grow on that planet? Maybe if it is nothing, but what if it can't grow anything? What's going to happen to a planet in its orbit if there is none? Is that even going to play a role?
Yeah, and how powerful would these be? Would you just drop one bomb on a planet and then it turns green, or would you have to get a whole fleet of these and just do like a bombing route several times?
It's interesting.
Yeah, it is a very cool ship. There isn't many at the moment, at least, but it offers like an offensive option while also giving like utility while not in wartime, which I think is quite valuable.
I think we saw some sneak peek stuff of the bombs in action over on the Star Atlas Discord, which was really neat. I mean, this is not a small ship, and the size of the bombs are not small either, based on what we saw. I think what's really interesting, or what I would like to know, is it talks about, you know, restoring to nature what was there before the greedy pursuit of mineral riches. Does it replenish the minerals, or is it just, you know, make everything green again? What do you guys think?
I think it'd be super overpowered if it replaced the minerals, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How does it know which minerals?
Right. I think that it probably kind of brings it back to a form that you could do other things with. But I think that the mineral content, yeah, that would be strange if all of a sudden you just had this abundance of minerals for a place that had been completely depleted.
Well, you know, Wagner talked about food the last town hall, right? As far as needing food for people. So maybe it's a way for you to pull the resources out and then turning it into a farming community that still provides resources. I think there's so much they could do here.
Yeah, it does sound quite interesting if you have, say, one planet in a solar system which has a lot of stuff on it, but nothing to, like, no materials to, like, grow. Be useful to maybe, like, steal a bunch of resources from one planet and then go bomb the good planet. So you could have, like, food and everything and production at the same time. That's what I think of, at least.
But it also says here, restore to nature what was lost. So does that mean that you can't just go to a barren like Mars landscape and all of a sudden create this forested utopia, because that wasn't what its natural space was before? So can it actually terraform a planet? Because terraforming is actually that. Terraforming means that you can change the structure. But this is saying restore. But there's going to be instances where maybe there's nothing to restore, but you're just trying to put in a green place or something fertile and suitable for growing crops.
You know, or maybe it's atmosphere as well, right? So maybe mining is easier for humans, for instance, if the atmosphere is Earth-like, and maybe this terraforming does that, and maybe there's a penalty for mining on an atmosphere that has some, you know, a negative impact to humans, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to food, I was just thinking about the alien race. They might have, over the hundreds of, you know, even thousands of years of being alive, they have a particular appetite, and they might not always or benefit the most from eating human food, and whatever that might be, or spaceship packages, or, you know, rations, or I don't know what. Like, so the different types of food I'm curious on for each faction. Just
maybe
like
they just eat humans.
Maybe they just say, you mean human food or humans as food?
That's immediately where my head went when he said a certain type of diet that they
I saw the movie Alien. This is telling us here that there's 772 in supply, so not a whole lot of them. So you think that, imagine if we divide that up through the three factions, then essentially you're going to see somewhere in the neighborhood of 255 or 60 of them in each faction. So there's not going to be that many of them around. It is a bomber. It's epic in rarity. Now, I think we did get some clarity that when you see ship crew slots, this is not maximum. I believe that this is a minimum to actually run the ship. That's my understanding anyway. Not certain, but that's kind of what my takeaway was. There's 2 ship module slots. And again, this doesn't mean that there's a total of 2 modules on the ship. This is just the modules that you can customize. Mm-hmm. And the same thing for the 17 ship components. So that means that there may be some standard, some stock modules and components, but the custom slots for adding customizations are the 2 modules and the 17 components. This thing's 130 meters in length, 58 meters wide, and 72 meters in height. So this thing's a beast, man. This is a tank. And it looks, I think this is the most tank looking ship probably in the whole bunch.
Yep.
You know, from a utility perspective, what comes to mind is some of us are buying ships based on how we see ourselves using them. But if somebody bought a couple of these, they could create a terraforming business and farm themselves out to maybe some of the guilds that don't have these in their, you know, their census, if you will.
Right.
So it seems like a great opportunity for a business here, just like the other Fimble ship, you know, the transport or the cargo ship.
Right. Have you just moved into a new planet with no life? Yes, that could be a business. And it's amazing that there's so many different paths that a person can choose, and we have no idea within the economy itself how that will play out. But that's also the beauty of it, is that the foundation of Star Atlas is based on thought around economy and around individuals and groups doing their thing. So a lot of potential. That brings us to the next ship. There were 2 ships dropped. The second ship, actually, this was the first ship. This an hour later, the bomber was launched, but the Pierce F4. And so this is a fighter class ship. There was just over 2,000, so 2,200 of them available in supply. It's also rare. 5 crew slots, 2 module slots for customization, 12 components. The length is 40, so it's still good size length. I mean, if we think about like what was the size of the Millennium Falcon, like 35 meters, something like that?
Something like that. The Hero is 39, I believe.
Yeah. So this is a similar ship in length. It's 25 meters wide and 9 meters tall. The initial price out the gate of $2,500. So here's what we know about it here. It's a standard issue Council of Pierce. And we've seen Pierce show up in a number of ships. So initially, we were assuming this is like the biggest manufacturer because we were seeing so many Pierce ships. But this is designated as a medium-sized patrol vessel made available to the private sector. The Pierce F4 has oversized weapon hardpoints and missile bays to punch above its weight class. So this thing is supposedly going to show up and be ready to fight. It has some other functions, and it's priced lower than what the Hero is. And the Hero is an all-around utility ship, as where this thing is to show up and fight. And also, as you'll see here in a moment, is also geared for escort. It says, throw in the extra bit of fuel storage for those deep space patrols, so you're going to be able to get some distance out of it. The F4 is a workhorse, a patrol vessel, and an escort, and it has a nice sized cargo hold to do a little bit of freight on the side. It's a well-rounded ship with all of the amenities to house a crew of 4 to 5 members for most of your difficult missions. So it sounds like when they say most, this sounds like if you're someone that doesn't have a whole lot to put into the game, it sounds like this is a well-rounded, low-cost option, as they're saying most of your difficult missions. So that may be a clue as to how much utility this will bring to the minigame.
Yeah, so I really like this ship. It's 1,000 USDC cheaper than the Hero was initially, but there are 1,000 more of the F4s than the Hero. It is quite an interesting ship, and I really do like how they give each ship a bit of cargo space, even if it's like an X4. It just seems practical, and yeah, seems a solid pickup.
Yeah. I want to just mention. I want to mention the ship design and the beauty of just the architecture of all these ships. It's just amazing. You know, there's so many templates and examples to take from in history, from just the movie industry and then also other video games. But you know, kudos to all the developers and the artists that are at work with this, because it really captures the eye.
Yeah.
Yeah, here was another picture that we saw of the F4 this week.
Yeah,
from behind.
Nice. Yeah. Interesting ship design. And when I was looking at it in flight, I wasn't quite sure what the structure might be like when it lands, but it looks like something drops down in the very front there, some legs that come down, and then you have this plank, this walkway where you can load your cargo bay. You see that guy standing up in there, so you can at least have an idea. You can load. You're not going to be putting a lot of stuff in there. You could probably, who knows, maybe you can get an X4 in there. But yeah, this is an interesting shot that gives us some perspective for sure.
And look at the loadout on that Space Marine also. I mean, that guy's ready for combat, right?
Right.
200 pounds.
The guy who's going to kill something.
Got like a rail gun. He's ready to go.
Oh, well, to that point too, these guys are suited for battling not only in space but on the ground. So
yeah,
what's happening here, or where are these guys going if this is not just art? And we're going to be able to land on planets, get out of the ship itself, and then patrol or even invade an enemy's destroyed like a structure where we can just harvest or scraps, or what is that going to look like? The on the ground battling when it comes to guns. And
there's been some reference to some first person type of combat as well. I think it's probably farther out than some of the other stuff we've seen, but if they can get the first person shooter stuff, the space stuff, all that involved, you're literally hitting every segment of the market. The racing market, the first person shooter market, the space market. There's something for everybody, which I think is one of the main draws of this game.
One of the things that gave me an opened my eye a little bit to what this can become, I watched a video, and I think I dropped it in for you guys in console, where it was Star Citizen, where this guy took like an hour and he's like, let me show you a couple of planets. He's like going to a couple different places, and you're seeing the cities. You're seeing how he lands on the landing pad and he's going through the city, gets on subways. He's doing all this stuff in a 3D world. I'm just thinking, man, what an amazing future we have with Star Atlas, where you will be able to visit planets and space stations and have these really unique experiences in 3D space of all these different that have their own unique look and feel, to where you feel like you're genuinely in a different place. And this is a place I want to go back to and hang out more. This place, not so much, wasn't really my vibe. Pretty cool. All right, so those are the two ships that dropped. We do have some stats now for the other ships. So we'll just quickly go through these and basically showing the supply, which we already knew. We already knew that the Guardian was a multi-role legendary, but it's also showing us 20 crew slots. Now, in the past, we've heard that this is a ship that has basically 200 crew. And so I did see it at one point, Buntius, who's a wealth of knowledge in the Foundation Room channel, say that these were like minimums, I guess, what it needs to run this ship. You're not going to run it for less, even if that's an NPC crew. That's my takeaway. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, if you guys have heard something else. And also, I was surprised. I'm like, really? This thing has got 5 ship modules and 14 ship components? It's like, no, this thing is already stacked. And by the way, again, and it's not stuff we're able to give out to you because that Foundation Room is really designed to be kind of like where it's kept in there. But let's just say it's worth it for you guys. Again, get that boost, get in that room if you're interested, because we saw a long list of things. For example, one that I can share. We know that on this ship, there's like a double-decker theater room. There is a hydroponics place to grow. There's cartography rooms. So those are things that could be modules, or I don't know if they're modules or components, but those could be things that could be added to a ship. It comes stock with this ship. So those 14 components and those 5 modules are custom add-ons beyond the things that you see here. And thanks for adding this, Fancy. That you can see you've already got a bunch of stuff that's stock. This is you drive this thing off the lot, it's already got most of the things you need, but yet there's still open modules for you to customize it even further. Pretty cool. And this ship you're looking at here, 300 meters in length. Greatest comparison, I think, would probably be one of the largest Star Trek vessels. So it's a big one. This thing holds like 40 of those drones that you see there. And based on past screenshots we've seen, those things, they're not just straight up disposable. They can actually land on a planet, get what they need. And based on the way they land, it looks like you can get them back. 160 meters wide. This thing's a wide beast. and 55 meters tall. So it's my vessel of choice. I'm a big fan of this one for sure. But it's nice now that we're starting to see the stats come out so we can do some comparison.
It's been appreciating in value, if I recall, as well. I think this is one of the ships that's gone up quite a bit as far as revenue growth. I think the thing that's interesting, and we know the size of this ship, it's probably the same size as an Enterprise or even bigger. And we think about the crew of the Enterprise, they have probably rotated crews through. So the way I look at this is you're probably looking at a manned crew at any given time, and then you might have replacement crew or secondary crew or things like that.
Right. So that's the Calico Guardian. Another ships, the Ogrica Thripid. This one here, 729 available. Things we already knew about the specs. We knew it was legendary, but we did get those additional specs of the crew slots, the modules, component slots, and then the length. This is a beast, man. When you think about 170 meters for this thing that is just dedicated to destruction. This isn't, it doesn't have much in the way of a cargo bay. This is just showing up to kick your ass.
How do you think this would fare against a F4?
Whoop it.
I've actually thought about this. I've actually thought about this one because they say that the other one, punches above its weight class, but this is a legendary, and it's also considerably bigger. So, what did we have for that last one? We had where are you?
The other thing you have to consider is this one is meant to punch above its a weight class, but the other one, for its size, it's very maneuverable, and it can dish it out at the same time.
Yeah. So this thing is 40 meters in length, and this beast is 170. So it's literally 4 times as long as big. So yeah, they better show up with at least 4, maybe 5. At best. Yeah. So yeah, show up prepared.
Yeah, I think if you had like that stealth advantage where it surprised it and hit it in its weak spots, it could probably go toe to toe with it. But a straight up fight when it know it's coming, I think the Thripod will be able to whoop the crap out of it.
And then so there's a couple considerations with ships. You have maneuverability, you have the actual firepower itself, and then you have the shield capability. How much damage can you take? And so even if those F4s can pack a punch, if the weaponry on this is such to where it only takes 1 or 2 hits to disable, then that's a consideration as well. It's gonna be fun.
Yep.
Yeah. So this has 16 components. That's a lot. And one thing I haven't wondered yet is if the Ogrica Thripid is a stealth ship. Imagine this, like just coming out of nowhere, the size of the football field. That'd be terrifying.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think there should be a component to this ship that's stealth based because of it being an ONI ship, and we know ONI having an advantage in stealth technology of some sort. So that could be why it's so dangerous and deadly, and why it could be this big compared to an F5 or any other fighter type of.
You need a lot of power to stealth all of that, though.
True,
and it's 3.5 times the cost as well. So if we've learned anything from kind of the direction that they're building, is that the MSRP of an asset dictates a lot about its perceived value and worth and capabilities within the game.
One of the things that I think is worth sharing specifically to our Discord is a lot of our members post the pictures they find all over the internet. And there is a couple pictures in there that we didn't share today, but it looks like someone had a pre-release picture of an F4 in there that looks pretty sharp from the front, and it looks like there might be an internal blueprint as well. I'm not sure where people are getting these from, if they're getting them from ArtStation, but people are scouring and scraping for data.
I found a lot of pictures on the internet just typing in Star Atlas ArtStation, but I haven't found a lot of these ones popping up, so I'm not too sure where they're coming from.
Yeah, it's a bit scary.
When it's an unverified source. Yeah.
Do we have any
from the Foundation room?
Do we have any that we can share? Or
not loaded up. I could do it quickly. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. If so, we always have this nice little, like, this thing we can pop on the screen. We do not know the source. It's unverified.
Yeah. And see, 2 of them were posted by Data today or yesterday of the X4. It looks like an internal blueprint and a shot from the front.
Cool. Good to see. Well, if you're looking that up, I'm just going to continue on here, and then we know this is Fancy's favorite right here. This is the and this thing's this like the Cadillac of the sky, man. This thing, I love how they took into consideration, viewing, like throughout the ship, no matter where you're at, you've got a lot of viewing space in your what would we call it? It couldn't be a moon roof because you're out in space. So I mean, sunroof, moon roof, star roof, galaxy roof. But it's pretty cool. I love the look, the feel. Whoever's the designer for this and the Guardian, whoever designs the calicos, man, I love the look and feel, and I'm also super excited to see what the rescue module looks like whenever that comes out.
Yeah,
that's going to be cool.
I can't. Well, we see so many pictures. Sometimes I don't know where we see them, so I'll just speak briefly about it. But we did see some sort of ship that looked like it had the ability to grab people out of space. It had like a cargo bay in the front, and I'm not sure where we saw that. And if I'm oversharing, I apologize, but I won't share any more than that. But there is some, like I said, if you're interested in finding pictures, Fancy just shared Search Art Station and Star Atlas, and you'll get all kinds of crazy pictures showing up.
Indeed.
Yep.
So this thing, again, while it's showing 4 crew slot, 2 module slots, 14 component slots, which oddly is the same number of component slots for the Ogreca, it's 39 meters in length, which again makes this bigger than the Millennium Falcon. 33 meters wide and 10 meters tall. So this thing, what do we know? We know it can. What is the ship size it can accommodate? Can you put a
extra small? So an X4 or an jet,
so,
a little motorcycle.
I'm not sure if it's an OPOD as well, because when I asked, it was just an X4 was the answer, an extra small. But OPOD does seem to be a bit thicker than the X4, so who knows?
Yeah.
So
I did get those. Go on, sorry.
Sorry, Fancy. From a theorycraft perspective, what do you guys think the modules and the components are? If you were just to theorize and not go off any information you have, what would be the difference? Would one be like a deck versus a piece of technology?
Yeah, I think components are more like maybe weapon pods, scanners, stuff like that, maybe, and then an actual module would be something massive like storage space.
Yeah. And unfortunately, we can't share some of those, but we have actually seen lists that have been shared with us that kind of give you an idea of what each of those components and modules might be. But it is exciting because it means that all of these ships have such a degree of customization beyond their off-the-lot lineup that when you come up on this ship, you have no idea which 14 additional components and which additional modules have been added to this thing unless you potentially have the means to scan it and find out.
Okay. So ships are almost like an avatar in an MMO. Like, if, for an example, in EverQuest, you had your warrior and you had all the things you could do to modify your warrior. It's really the same with the ships. You're going to be able to adjust and modify to your play style. I think it's fantastic. This is one of the pictures I was talking about, and I love this picture.
That's cool. So that looks like maybe they added additional fuel storage modules for longer distance travel, perhaps?
Or drones.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell. At this resolution, it was quite a small picture. But,
yeah, it was scanned. Bad resolution.
It's got 2 outhouses up top.
What's interesting? Can you go back to that picture really quick? There is something there I want to point out that I thought was really interesting. Look at that dome or that sphere in the front. Do you think that's a navigation system?
Yeah, navigation. Yep.
Yeah, that's sharp. Sure, yeah. And I hope we can interact with that at a 3D level when we finally get to the AAA game.
Is this the Pierce or is this the this is the Pierce, right?
Yeah, it's just might be the F4. We're not sure.
Yeah, it's the F4.
But yeah, Benjo, you brought up an interesting point there. I mean, because you know, the F4 and the Calico here are roughly the same size, and with these modules being, you know, you being able to place these modules, is it possible that you're going to have more firepower on your Calico than an F4 would have?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does come with quite a bit. Now, this is an interesting one. This is obviously a police, you know, I'm assuming it's a police vehicle.
Yeah, I think it's the Pierce F4 from the front.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah,
so
I didn't notice the red and the blue, but you're right. They have some other vehicles that are police models. It makes sense that this is a police model as well.
That's
so
probably
where you might see this is in the mid-tier space, because the mid-tier space still allows for some PvP and potentially, who knows, maybe some PvE, some mercenaries, some pirates or something that may attack you. But it seems like you can call on, or these will also be patrolling. So this is probably one of the vehicles we would see patrolling a mid-tier zone.
Well, didn't the F4 say that it was there was a government version and a civilian version?
Yeah.
We're getting access to the civilian version. So if this is the government version, you know, this may be part of the player versus environment, right? Where you may be going to attack these in some sort of confrontation to earn experience or atlas.
Yeah.
And there was one more picture. It's not the F4. It's the R8, I think, this time.
Oh, I love that.
Yes.
Yeah. No idea where these pictures are getting taken from, but they are very interesting. Yeah.
This thing, I think it's going to be the Swiss Army knife of ships. I think it will probably have like the greatest number of modules and things you can add to it for repair, for fueling. It's a pretty cool design. I really like this one.
You know, one thing we haven't talked about is the thing that's on treads there, and we've seen it in a couple different pictures, specifically with the C9. And on Twitter, I saw somebody mention those as a kind of a weapons restocking or a ship restocking vehicle. Have you guys heard anything about those?
No.
Actually, I would like to say that's actually a really good comparison. You see the Pierce X5s. If you mind going back real quick.
Ooh, sorry. Yeah. Right.
The Pierce X5 is a small ship compared to the refueler ship is an extra large, I believe, or larger ship is, if I remember correctly. That's what it says in the brochure.
And you do see a couple of humans standing there too.
Very tiny. And it looks like this one's set up for repair, right? I mean, it's repair or fueling, or is it both?
It depends on how many modules are on it.
No, so this is repair, and so that cockpit on the top, it rotates around 90 degrees, and like one end's repairing, one end's refueling.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And those are refuel tanks, it looks like, right out in front.
Yeah.
Those are beasts when you look at them compared to the X5. That's a lot of fuel.
How many X5s can I put in my fuel tanks? That's the question.
Surprise.
Right. So that brings us to, you know, as you say, Banjo, this is probably one of the sleepers, the most underappreciated, perhaps, of the ships that have already been released. It's actually the only freighter. Now, while we can carry freight in the other ships, there's through cargo hold, this one is designed for it, you know, the Thimble Pack Light. And if, it says here it's 123 meters in length, 30 wide, and 17 meters high. And we were talking about this before the show started in the green room there, about how we were wondering, like, are those traditional cargo containers? Because, you know, like, you've got some that are like 40 feet, but if they're using the size of that cargo container as width, this thing is saying it's closer to 90 feet in wide. So maybe that's a little bit bigger than what that'd almost be a little bit more than twice the size of a traditional cargo container in length, at least.
Yeah, the more I look at the Thimble, the more I wonder about the Rainbow Om, because it's a medium freighter as well, and it's classed one above as epic, while the Rainbow Bios is rare. So I'm wondering what the deal is there. Are they dealing in like higher quantities or faster speeds? And I am tempted to get a freighter, but I kind of want to look at what's there first.
I'm a bit biased because I have one, but compared to a cargo ship that you would see, you know, if you went to a dock here on Earth, those are about 300 meters long. So it's about half the length of a standard cargo ship. So to put it in perspective, so to your point, Jesse, those containers do look like they're far bigger than you would see if you were to go to like a port in Oakland and look at the cargo ships.
Okay, so this is a guy who uploaded all of them pictures to our Discord. Apparently they're all on ArtStation. I'll probably have a good look later. Thanks.
Yeah, and one of those photos was actually the cockpit of this Packlight Fimble. So it's pretty interesting, the inside view from an angle.
It's very industrial looking, right? It's meant for work.
Yes.
When you look at the cockpit.
Right.
She's not beauty to look at, but she does the job.
You know, it looks like, from a design perspective, it looks like a combination between just a run-of-the-mill cargo ship and then the containers that you normally find on it. It's definitely a throwback from early Earth.
Yeah, no kidding. And I guess since AI don't need spacesuits, it's also a transport ship for Booster, right? They can just
pack them up
to the outside.
Yes.
So, but as far as investing, there you go. So there's the inside of it, and pretty semi high tech. Got those big block computer screens up top. I'm getting the old school feel.
When you say that, Ray, I was thinking. I looked at those two screens specifically. I'm like, who uses CRT monitors on a spaceship?
This is
This is
it's the genesis of the space world.
Yeah, there's been a lot of cutbacks.
Right.
If you pan the camera to the left, you'll see the sleeping quarters are just like little coffin beds. You just relax, and there you go.
Well, you know,
those seem to be steps, but okay, they probably are.
The description talks about how it's easy to repair, which is another thing that drew me to this ship. So I'm hoping it has reduced repair costs because it looks so ugly and bare.
Yeah, right. and that's the thing what Fancy was mentioning. Like, there has to be perks or pros and cons to each for why you'd want to invest in picking one up. So for the ONI, medium freighter, you'd have that boost being an ONI race, within your ONI faction, and you might be able to carry more or at a faster speed versus if you maxed out the capacity for one of these Fimble Packlights. But these might be more of a localized transportation freighting ship. Where you have it would be pointless or later in game to use a larger or epic rarity type of freighter, no matter the race, to do something of this magnitude, which is simple, like on planet. Because this Fimble, why did they have to put this Fimble Packlight on a planet? And with the back, what I'm saying? It could have just been another ship in the sky. But it seems like the bigger ships are going to be able to obviously do much more and have different perks for not doing simple kind of freighting missions when the game gets more developed.
One more thing before stay on this slide, that's fine. But Ecopter in chat brings up a good point. The bounty hunter that we saw earlier was also using an old school sniper rifle. So there's almost like this mishmash of technology with Alien, which had high-end technology, but we have some of this old stuff floating around too. So maybe that's a design intention.
Right.
Yeah, so I pulled up this picture as well. It looks like the Fimble. Perhaps it's the original skin, because that other picture we've been talking about, everyone's been saying that's the Lone Star. So
does that say NYC right near the head in that black hexagon? From what I see, it looks like New York City.
Damn, but they weren't joking when they're saying you can strap it down. We got the little web. What was it? The little ropes, space ropes that go around and everything. Like
it's made out of mushrooms.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when you really find something good, and you want to pack every single inch of your truck with the cargo. Like, there you go. This is the way to go.
Looking at this scale, though, the human that's down below the cargo containers, that looks like a standard size cargo container now that we're looking at it in this angle.
Right.
The thing that confuses me about this ship is that I look at some of the ship designs and I'm curious, like, which ones are designed for within the atmosphere and which ones are designed for deep space where you don't have gravity. The one picture we see here looks like they're in space, which would make sense because they have propulsion from different directions that pushes them lateral, pushes them forward. But what is the thrust that gets these things off the ground?
That's a good point. Maybe there's some level of anti-gravity or something.
Maybe, but you would think if they had that, they would actually have some other form of propulsion rather than what looks to be really old propulsion here. Yeah, hard to say. All right, where does that?
Well, Michael brings up a good point, Jesse, about the inefficiency, right? We see this big ship to move 4 ISO containers. I agree, it does seem inefficient, but we don't know the degree with the resources. You could pack maybe 1 trillion Atlas worth of resources in some of those containers, depending on the value of the resources.
And not only that, but if that last picture we just had from the top, I mean, there were several smaller containers sitting on the top as well. So there's quite a bit of storage going on here. I mean, and then Ultra was talking about you being able to strap more stuff with webbing or something like that, right? So.
Well, the only other freight that we have coming up that I've seen that's in the GAO sheet is the Rainbow Ohm. Yeah. And that thing just looks like a big block of cheese, a slice of cheese from a wheel.
Cheddar,
right? And so it's going to be interesting to see the different approaches and technology for a freight, a transport vessel like that, between this old school American, or not American, but a human cargo container hauler versus this thing that has smooth edges that just looks like a slice of a cheese wheel.
And somebody on Twitter put a bunch of pictures of the Ohm together to kind of give a better understanding of what it's like. And it's actually showing up in a lot of the environmental art. People just haven't called it out yet. I won't be able to pull it up today, but I'll look for it and share it with you guys in the council chat. So
here's a theory crafting situation. If these slices of cheese were like Lego pieces that you can put together to carry much more, and then you would have a cylinder type of freighting situation going on that has like a 360 defensive, so it would be pretty cool if you could team up with others, and that would be a perk of what the ONI freighter ship would be.
I was literally just trying to find that picture because I was thinking the exact same thing. What happens if you put them all 8 of them together?
The nutritional value skyrockets.
That's the Ohm Tetris model.
Right. Well, that brings us to one of the all-time favorites. I think that, it's for the price point on this thing, which is $1,500 when it came out. I think now they're in the neighborhood of about 23, 25, something like that. But this still, I ended up getting a couple of these. I love this ship. I love the data runner. I love the look, the feel. I love all the ways that they've shown it in art. Size, this is one of the first ships I think that we're seeing lots of art of and saying, wow, this is a good size ship. You could kind of feel like when we think of Firefly, or we think of, whatever the ship that the guy runs now from
Mandalorian.
From Mandalorian, yeah. This kind of feels like, if you're just kind of like a lone wolf, maybe you got a couple people with you or something, and you want to go out for the stars, that this is kind of a ship that meets a lot of those needs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was quite surprised that it has room for 5 people. When it first got released, it said 10, and that was a bug. It got fixed, but that surprised me even more. I imagined like 2 or 3 people on this ship, just like doing everything they can to survive like as long as possible, just on like a data run.
I agree. Like a minimum amount of people running the ship. Maybe another ship that comes to mind is the one of the Guardians of Galaxy. That seems like they usually have about 5 or so people on there, but didn't seem like most of them are doing much.
I think what's interesting about this one is how modifiable it is. 13 component slots really means that you can kit this ship to do whatever you want. And I'm wondering how easy you can get the components in and out. Does it cost money? Do you save them? Do they get destroyed? So can you modify it for different missions that you're doing, over the course of a week or a month?
Yeah, and it has double the modules that the Hero has.
And it already is decked out with a lot of stuff off the lot. So that's a lot of extra stuff that you can put on it. That's pretty
these
cool.
are going to be very valuable to any situation, or any guild or group or a fleet for that matter.
Any ship that has like a large hull will immediately become valuable because even ships like the Thripid, it doesn't have a cargo bay.
Yep.
So, yeah.
I mean, we know now, and we're actually going to see this in some screenshots to come, but ship missions in the minigame are going to be in direct proportion to the the MSRP, like of the assets that you deploy. So that being the case, not only that, but they're also going to have an associated cost. That cost being maintenance, cost being fuel, the cost being feeding your crew. And so when you think in terms of a ship mission, ships like this here and potentially even the Hero allow you to do a whole lot and potentially make money in the process without going through a lot of resources. So I think that will be a factor for smaller ships over larger ships, is the consumption of resources and fuel on missions. We'll see. The Opal Jet. I mean, every time I see this one, I just hear dum 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 dum. La da la da dee.
Snoop Dogg said he's buying a spaceship, so maybe this is the one he's buying.
Maybe.
Most likely.
Now, you know what? Hey, I got to say, if they came out with a Snoop custom skin, I'd be pretty compelled to buy it.
Oh, I'd buy it.
You got to.
Right? Yes, and it's classified as a racer. So when we think of, we were talking earlier about the fact that there's going to be some sanctioned races, whether that's things that are put on by Star Atlas as a mission, whether that is just kind of like an arena thing where you show up, you can race, you can enter the race, and then for those that don't enter the race, you can kind of wager on the race. I see all of that happening, and being that this is tagged as a racer, this and the Opal Jet. So the Jet and the Jet are going to be the vehicles that are going to be modded. Like we can see this here, ship components. You think that this thing is just like a casual cruiser to get around. If you've got a module slot and component slots, you can probably arm this thing. You can probably have different types of races based on the way you stack this thing. It's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm quite interested to see how some ships are changed from what they initially are. So this is a racer. Imagine putting like all 10 slots to weapons, or imagine changing the Visas Opod into a cargo or something like that. I'm really intrigued to see how people really customize these things.
I'm wondering if with this ship being a speed ship and 11 component slots, could you use it as kind of like an exploration ship with some stealth, maybe some warp, and go out and really kind of do the same job that an OPOD does, but with less resources, or maybe just not go as far?
I tell you what this ship could definitely be used for. The same thing of how the cigarette boats got their name, those fast on the water smugglers getting stuff in and out, because this thing is clearly going to be super fast as a racer. You've got modules. And so for those things that are small, whether that's diamonds, whether that's components, things that are kind of black market, this thing is going to get them across borders.
Yeah, and when it comes to racing, you think about weight, and you would want to be the lightest compared to your opponent. So when it comes to these components and everything that you can equip a ship with, I wonder if there's going to be individual weight like a different poundage for each component, which is going to weigh you down, which you should consider when it comes to racing or just travel in general for fuel efficiency. So that's a whole other situation.
And while this thing looks like a car, it's pretty much almost 60 feet long. This is a hoop.
Yeah, it's like if it's 60 feet long and 3 meters high, that's a tall woman. That's like 10-foot tall woman.
Well, we saw that one picture that had it was the cargo bay that had like the small human and the person that was like 3 times or 4 times as high. So maybe that's this guy, but that's a great point, Andy.
Right. 9-foot hybrid.
Yeah. Amazon woman.
Yeah.
Hey, in our images, people have been posting stuff since we've been talking about it, and there is a really unique picture of an omen there.
Really?
On the ground with people outside of it. I'm not on admin, so I can't upload it. Maybe Fancy can grab it. But it looks like it's on a landing zone with humans outside of it.
Oh, nice. I definitely want to see that. That's the ship that's the ship I'm most intrigued about purchasing next, and I'm hoping it's going to go on sale here in the next week or so. We have been told that every few days there will be a ship that drops between now and the mini game. So things are picking up and moving along. It felt like we had a little bit of a lull there for a while, the quiet before the storm, so to speak. Yeah. But it feels like now that we're kind of in motion.
For sure.
This in which there is plenty of. I think this is the first category of ship that could almost be considered a burner.
Yeah.
It's 135 USDC. There's 34,000 of them. There's still many available for sale. 2 crew, so you and a partner can pilot this thing. And I'm wondering if like one person is focusing on flight while the other person is focusing on gunning or navigation. 1 ship module, 12 components. It's 20 meters in length, 8.4 meters wide, and 3.6 meters tall. And one of the things that's most interesting about this is that it has a form factor that allows it to go flat for speed and landing, but when it is in combat mode, it just raises its horns here. As you can see, it just goes full bore firepower.
If you think about the height of a normal room, a room in your house is about 3 meters, to give you an idea of how high this is. So it's a really small craft overall.
Mm-hmm.
And I imagine it does a lot of destruction based on its intended purpose as well. So I can't wait to see these things flying around. You get a C9 or something and get a bunch of these from a guild flying around in a defensive or an offensive posture. It's going to be a sight to see.
Yeah, I think that if this thing's flat, it's probably that 3 meters high. But in this position that we're seeing it now, if I had to guess, I'd say that's at least 10. It's probably half of the length of the ship when it's in this formation. So it's still, I mean, it's intimidating to anything that's not a ship bigger than it. If you're just in a cargo ship or otherwise, a ship that can maneuver like this is probably going to be a little bit of a threat on its own. I don't know. What do you think? Like a cargo ship that has no defense, if it doesn't have an escort, you get one of these pop up on it, it's going to be in trouble.
Yeah, I bought some X5s for that specific reason. So I have the cargo ship, and I knew I was going to need something to protect it. And hopefully we can farm these out. I don't know if we're going to talk about that in a little while, the renting mechanic, but hopefully I can rent these out to people who want to work for me and protect my cargo ship.
Right. Yeah, I'm totally interested to see what the mechanics will come into play for renting items that we own. That's the beauty of it. As I love that the Star Atlas team is thinking about all of these things. And as we're going to see here a little bit more once we get through the ships, we're almost done there, is that there's been a lot of thought put into how we will not only contribute as individuals, but come together in groups. That brings us to the Opal Jet, of which there's 130,000 just about of these things. It's super common. It is a racer. I think in terms, when I think of this thing here, I think about the pod racing, in Star Wars.
Yeah.
And so I think we're going to see a lot of these put to that kind of use. And they're a bit throwaway at that point. These are like $20 a piece. You do have, surprisingly, you got 10 components to put on this thing, which is going to be exciting, the way that you can decide what's important to you and how you're going to stack it together. 15 meters in length, 4 wide, and 3 high.
I hope there's quite a variety of builds when it is all developed. Like, I hope everybody doesn't just use the same loadout for every race. It would take away from the amount of customizability, really.
Yeah.
I think the min-maxers are going to do that anyhow, right? They're going to figure out the best way they can win these races or have the best possibility of winning the races. I think what would be helpful is if the people who create the races create conditions that require you to change the loadouts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that brings us to this guy here, which I think, again, this is another one in the 100 and almost 30,000 supply. It's a common fighter. 1 module, 12 components, 5 meters in length, 1 meter wide. This is the motorcycle of space. Again, we have all types of questions as to whether this places a shield around you so you can go outside the atmosphere, because we can see this human is below the atmosphere, so I wouldn't exactly take that too high. We find some people passing out at about 50,000 feet.
Yeah, no helmet on.
Right? No helmet laws there, apparently. And so, yeah, it's one of those things where it's got some firepower because it is a fighter. So it's the cheapest fighter available. The question becomes, is that this going up against, say, even an OPOD, how many of these, if you had a whole biker gang, a whole Pierce X4 biker gang of 20 of these guys, are they a match for an OPOD? What do you guys think?
Well, I guess it would come down to who the individuals are who are manning these because the skill levels are going to need to be there. And this photo right here shows the maneuverability of one of these, how fast they're going, but also the battle that this individual is taking part in. This is a life or death situation for him, and his mouth is open. He has no helmet on. Like what defense systems does this have? Is this just like a sacrificial kamikaze type of situation? And so I think a lot of them, just like with the X5s, will do a lot of damage. But these are more of disruptors in my eyes, to distract and to take focus off of the big bad boys that are in the background, coming in hard with the heavy hitters.
Well, what we see here too, it's interesting. This is a picture dedicated to the X4, but we also see, is that a C9 in the background getting wrecked?
We
don't know what hit it.
I think.
What was that, Fancy?
It's the capital, isn't it? I can't remember.
C11? C11 then?
All the way up there, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's getting wrecked by something, but we don't know what hit it. Maybe it was surface to air, perhaps, since it looks like they're terrestrial. They're like down near the ground.
But you don't have to worry. The Pierce X4 is on it.
Who knows? Maybe there's a rare loadout of like some nuke or something you can pack on that X4.
Yeah, and something to note about the fight between, say, 20 X4s and one Visosopod is that the smaller fighters aren't able to warp. So if the larger thing has warp, then it's pretty much their choice. So I think it's going to be a matter of just like simple transport and being able to get like locked down targets or being able to like stop people from warping away somehow.
What can you imagine might be 12 different components that you could stack on something that small?
So that might just be like 12 different things you could upgrade on the vehicle.
I was gonna say apple juice you sip on.
Jesse, there's a couple comments or questions in the chat there. One of them was about shipbuilding and something that Michael apparently said about the ships that could be built are not going to be as good as the ones you were bought. Did anyone see that? Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
I think that's important in order to preserve value for the early investors,
Interesting. So, and I kind of hope that, honestly, I mean, like for those of us that bought these initial releases, I'm hoping that if we look down the road a couple of years from now, that these will be legacy. And the way that I could see them doing that might be the components, for example, that come stock. Maybe it's a tougher process to build the equivalent of what we're getting now in these off-the-shelf ships. But it's hard to say what the future will bring. But that's kind of what my thinking is about it. I didn't see that comment myself, so I can't really comment on what Michael said.
The most I've heard about them being differentiated is being called like Gen 0, Gen 1. Just naming differences really, but being a part of different collections. So like when they start building in game, perhaps Calico Hero could be an option, but that would be like a Gen 1. And there'd be all the Gen 0s left.
Yeah, I'm not so sure on the power of the ships that you'll be, like how powerful the ships are going to be, if they're going to be less or more powerful than the ones of Gen 1. But as in the crypto space, it's the early arrivers and investor are usually taken care of in that sense, where there's going to be added perks to getting in early, as we saw with the posters. So I wouldn't put it past them for all Gen 1 ships to just have that much more firepower strength, if you want to call it that, or whatever the perks are for the factions and their race compared to ships that are being built.
I see it as maybe as a function of earning less, right? So if we have the ones that we bought on the outside market, maybe they'll earn more than something you buy in game. Maybe a quarter of what you would earn if you bought the ship on the open market will be the in-game purchases. I don't know. It seems like they have to do something. I think where my mind goes is over the course of 5-10 years, how are they going to balance the Gen Zero ships with everything else that's coming out and still provide that additional level of value? I've never seen a game do that, right? There's always power creep in every game I've ever played, and I just don't know how they're going to maintain the value, if you will.
One of the
I like that a lot, Banjo. I've seen that with a couple other projects that are coming out where the buff that you get from being an early adopter is actually more on the lines of you being able to earn more from the quest or whatever that you're going to do, as opposed to pure power in game. That being said, it's not the most difficult thing for them to buff the Gen Zeros, as it were, as new stuff comes out. So as that power creep moves forward, they could always just slap a buff on the Gen Zero stuff and keep them up.
One of our guildies, PG, I was having a conversation with him about this exact thing last night, and he was saying that, imagine, so you've got what, roughly 200 to 300 Guardians, and then through this early process, some of these ships are going to be destroyed. So as you were saying, Banjo, 5 to 10 years down the road, you may be down to 50 of these original Guardian class, Calico ships. And so when you see them, it kind of should have some reverence. There should be some reverence associated with it. And so I would hope that in addition to the earning, there's actually some buff so that when people see it, like, whoa, dude, that's one of the OGs.
Yeah.
We're down to 1 Millennium Falcon, right? I mean, that's what I see based on what you're saying there.
Right.
I just want to call out that I think we've got some of our Brazilian friends in chat. I think the BSA just showed up and are representing. So welcome, BSA.
Cheers.
Representing.
I think it's also fair to say we have our Turkish friends as well watching today as also.
We have international squads in our Discord, so there's always someone to talk to.
Welcome. Absolutely. All right, so that brings us to, we got through all the ships there, and it took us a while, but it's always fun just talking about these things because the ships are what we're going to be interacting with first as the minigame rolls itself out. But one of the first things that we were able to do just this past week was to sign up and choose a faction. And so the first faction is, again, we see this human here, but they definitely got some add-ons. So humans are getting some assisted devices along the way 600 years from now. But what's interesting about the humans here within the Mud faction is that before we had knew them as having traits of firepower and travel distance, I believe was the other one.
That was correct, yeah.
Yeah. And now we're looking at faction traits of firepower and industriousness. So I'm assuming that they're going to get some kind of a boost and a bonus to their industry, whether that is the ability to turn raw materials into useful resources. So it's going to be interesting, that Mud. And by the way, as you'll see here in a moment, I took a screenshot from earlier today. Mud is the top tier faction as it stands right now. I'm not going to read through all this. You've got time to read that yourself, but it's just interesting to note here that that we can see that they've got local resources. We don't know what these resources are yet. We don't know what Tenum and Hycenium and Diamond. Well, we know what a diamond is, but we don't know how it's utilized as their local resource in the land. So it's pretty interesting that each faction is indeed going to have some resources that are native to their region.
Yeah, I did think they got the Mud territory people spot on. Their traits, firepower, and industrious. That's us to a T. Yeah.
That's humans, right?
That's what we do.
Yes, it's a bit of a burn, but I like it.
And the leadership is what? Charan Gotti Jr., which sounds a lot like John Gotti Jr., which also is very human.
Right?
We like it.
Yeah, BSA is Mud. Interesting. Yeah. So over the past month, obviously, Rome, we declared that we're the ONI faction. We've seen others like IA also declared that they are Mud. We have seen AEP, who has declared all 3 factions, so they're spread throughout. We've seen other factions begin to show, not other factions, excuse me, other guilds begin to show up and choose their faction. So it's going to be interesting how we see all of it come together. The mini game is going to be somewhat different because it's not like in the mini game we're out doing PvP. It's basically use your allocated resources that you've purchased in the way of ships to be able to go out and earn Atlas. But thereafter, as they start rolling out more, or especially as we'll talk about here in just a moment, roll out some of the guild process, it's going to be interesting to see how people show up. So still a lot of unknowns.
Yeah, what's interesting, I would love in the future for us to have guild leaders, some of the major guild leaders from the other factions, and talk about why they chose the factions they chose, because we had our own reasons. Yep. Even though we put it to vote within the guild, one of the things about this particular visual that you have up is the human doesn't look human. Like, she looks cartoonish, right? And some of the other pictures we've seen, they're less cartoonish. And for me personally, it's kind of a turnoff, right? Because I don't picture Star Atlas as being cartoonish. Yeah, I picture it as being gritty space.
Yeah, it is interesting. It is quite a bit different. Even on the hands, though, as well, you can see there's like some. Yeah. Which makes me wonder: are there going to be humans that are just human that don't have these, and is this a subsect of human that is chosen to modify?
Yeah. Exoskeletons and nanotechnology that could be implanted within instead of seeing it outside. There could be a whole bunch of stuff.
And that's another thing where I saw this before, is that when we saw the MetaHuman video, the MetaHuman engine that runs within Unreal Engine really goes to demonstrate how human, the facial twitches and the smile and the eyes and all of those things make a person look human. But yet we have seen some images of human-esque like people from the Mud faction in Star Atlas that look very artificial. Like even their look, they have that blank stare like you would imagine if AI took over a human. That brings us to a form of AI, the androids, which is the cybernetic sentient beings that are the Ooster. Ooster maintains whole strength, which we already knew, but the other thing that was shared before was maneuverability. That has been since replaced with exploratory. So something about these guys allows them to explore quite a bit more. I don't know exactly what that means, but then we also see their local resources, 3 more resources that are native to their region. Viscovite, dodoline, and lithium.
Yeah. Lithium makes sense. You need it in batteries.
Right. You would think so, right?
And the exploratory trait, that does kind of make sense as well with what I was talking about earlier, how they don't need food. They could stay out longer, really. Yeah. If they've got the battery, a couple solar panels, it's a party.
Right.
Two things stand out. I was going to say 2 things stand out on this image. One is the icon, which looks like an Elgrica thripid from the front to me.
It totally does.
Yeah. And then the other part is it says something that's really interesting. It says you're going to be able to form your own path in the physical universe and ascend the ranks of every observable spiritual plane. So I'm really curious what that means for an AI, right?
It sounds like they're going with a lore where these guys became sentient and now they're literally trying to find the meaning of life and their purpose within. It even says there, like, their pursuit of transcendent awakening and experiencing the universe through an organic medium. So they're trying to become more organic and really try and understand, like, the meaning of life, That's what it sounds like, which is an interesting kind of perspective. And if you think of like androids like Data, for instance, Data was obsessed with like trying to smile and wonder what emotions were like and things like that. So it seems like they're trying to play that similar theme with the Ooster android class.
And if I recall correctly, Battlestar Galactica had the same kind of premise, right? They were looking for some sort of spiritual tie.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And that brings us to ONI, which obviously we're a fan of here. Now, the ONI faction here, we did know that they had technological advancements. We had basically known it as stealth and scanning, but this has been modified to actually have the first trait. And I don't know if this is alphabetical or in terms of how significant the trait is, but diplomatic, and technological, which I think is fantastic. I'm a fan of both of those. But then you have these local resources, which are pretty interesting. Jasperus, Chisenic, and gold. So yeah, it's pretty interesting resources. And so what will that look like? I can only imagine that at some point in space, regardless of the faction you choose, you're going to have research and development and components and things that you're building that are going to require resources that come from outside of your faction. So then is that black market? Is that faction to faction trading? What does that look like? And then, of course, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the things that we can, I guess, ascertain from this graphic is the OM ships are probably ONI, right? Because it says OM sector. So we kind of have a lore tied to a certain class of ships now.
Yeah. Although it's strange because that ship actually looks like, and the way the X4 or is with that split down the middle and those two long prongs that go. So it's really hard to say, like, what do these symbols represent? I guess.
Yeah, it also talks about how the wartime extinction of the Sogmian race. So there was obviously something big that happened that caused all of them to stick together, and that retained. So maybe the threat is still there. Perhaps that could be at the center of the universe, just speculating. But go on.
Great observation. Yeah, I just wanted to mention the resources for the ONI region can be the ones that are going to be for anyone else wanting to upgrade their technology, maybe. So depending on the faction traits, I think the resources are going to be that of the faction traits and what's going to be required. So maybe whoever wants advancements in technology, they're going to have to come to the ONI faction or the region and seek out those resources.
Well, it also says there was a breakthrough weapon of war that was created, right? So there might be, I know Mud is kind of the firepower faction, but there might be a technological advantage weapon of war type of thing that ONI can create as well.
That's how I read that as well.
Yeah. The other thing is, it was someone dropped it like maybe 3-4 weeks ago, but they were saying that the Last Stand, that Titan, is one of a kind ship meant, and I'm assuming it's probably that race that was nearly extinct, because you wouldn't call a ship a Last Stand if it was the last ship of its kind. And if there's only one of them, that's probably the ship specifically made for them, and that might be the technological breakthrough that they made, was just a massive Titan-sized ship of war, just pure war.
There's a section here that also says the materials, and I'm assuming the local resources, are highly coveted in the crafting of advanced stealth and radar technologies, lending to the discovery of even greater breakthroughs for all sentient life.
For all sentient life. So people are going to have to come roostering home. We're going to have the goods, and you're going to want them.
We shall be your savior. Good stuff. So that's the three factions there, and we can see here, and this was a snapshot from earlier today, and this is going to change and rotate. And so basically what this shows us is it shows us places 1, 2, and 3 as things are developing. I'm just thinking it's pretty fascinating to think that here is a game, concept-based, about 100 and some odd thousand people now, I guess, in the Discord channel, and there are $40 million in in-game assets that have already been dedicated to the rollout of Star Atlas, with, it looks like, somewhere in the neighborhood of 15,000, a little bit more than almost 16,000 people that are registered to play so far.
Yeah,
and these numbers keep jockeying for change. Go ahead, Fancy.
Sorry, that's all the people who have already clicked it. There's still a lot of people on the sidelines waiting. A lot of people who want to make that educated guess are going to wait till the last second. Sorry, Pat.
Not to mention, look at the wallet size of the top player in ONI compared to the other two. Oh, man.
Yeah. Now, what these assets look like, is a whole other story, because you could have this person's goal for having this much as an individual could just be simply for scholarships, and they're not interested in building a Dyson sphere or finding this diamond planet, and they just want another source of income in the crypto space, in the NFT crypto space. So a threat, maybe not, and that's the thing. we'll really have to wait and see for when everyone is going to be joining whichever faction or region, territory, sector they want. And it's almost genius the way they set it up, because it's almost going to be an equal spread across over time, as resources going to be allocated towards the least populated faction. There's going to be more resources for that least populated faction. So if there's going to be any type of change in numbers, and there's going to be more in, let's say, ONI versus Mud, and or Uster, then you'll see it even out eventually.
And one of the things I think is also cool about the fact that we chose these factions on the limited information we have. Even now, we're seeing that each faction has their own unique resources. And at some point during play, even after you've already selected your faction, you might decide, 6 months down the road, it's like, man, the thing I love doing most in building requires this resource that comes from another faction. But you know what? That's the cards you were dealt in your in the process of how you came into the world. And it's pretty cool, actually, because it kind of mimics, life. So it's pretty cool to see how this is going to unfold. And it's exciting that we're less than a week in now from kicking off registration, and we're starting to see things take form.
And Jess, I wanted to emphasize what you just said. It mimics life. And this is what Wagner mentioned. This is going to be the almost identical simulation of what real life is. So when I hear and I read comments, or I see people talking about we're going to kill you and like bust, we're going to destroy you, it's like, would you go around real life and potentially ruining your relationships that benefit you in the long run by acting, machismo or cocky up front now? Like you must not be negotiating deals on a daily or needing anything from anyone, and you must be that most independent individual ever on the planet, because this doesn't make sense. If it's going to simulate real life, you're going to have to be diplomatic, right? And there's benefits that come with that. So,
Ray, let me play devil's advocate there, because look on social media and tell me how real life shows up when you don't have a face to a name, and all you got is your internet brass balls.
Right.
A lot of people
keyboard warriors
act like assholes, right? I mean, so
Absolutely.
you can see a lot of stuff. Sorry, Bonafide, I think I stepped on you there.
You made a good point, Banjo, but going back to what Ray was saying, I mean, having played some games where there was a sandbox element and a significant investment that was required, usually by a time, right? There's going to be some tears spent from some of these guys that jump into games like this and think that they're going to throw some money at it and wave their e-paint around or whatever. No, that's not going to. People are going to get crushed, and it's going to be interesting watching it.
Yeah, System Sir in the comments says, tell that to the pirates, which is funny because in real life, you got the bad characters, you got those bad actors, but are they necessarily banding together as a one collective hive of cooperation to then take over a whole planet, or if we're talking about Star Atlas, they're very fractured. It's only subgroups and subsections, unless, because this is a game that just deals with the consequences of losing money, right? That's real. That's potentially that would be the only thing. So if you could afford to lose it all as far as what you invested, then yeah, you're going to be a pirate. You're not going to be good shit, and you're just going to be going around saying and dragging your stuff through cyberspace.
And we've seen this in sci-fi shows too, where if you choose that life of a smuggler or pirate and you have a bounty on you, then there's a lot of things that are off the table for you. There's places you can't go. There's things you can't do.
Yeah, so you're really gonna have to pick and choose wisely, and over time you might just, like in real life, you choose a different profession. You got arrested, you couldn't do much, and now you're coming out and you're born again, and you want to just join the ONI Faction, make a new account, and reinvest with us.
All the different levels of perspective in this game are just really, really interesting to me. Even like you were saying before, as far as like, you don't know some of these guys coming in whether they're going to be playing as far as trying to world dominate, or if they're just going to have a bunch of scholars and play very casually. Like, you have no idea what's going to happen. There's going to be so many different levels of intrigue and chess play to what's going to happen here.
Well, it's interesting to that point, even in our chat right now, while the video is going on, there's a dialogue going around about pirates and who's going to go after the pirates. So we know there's going to be different, people who show up in different ways in the game. There's going to be the utopian types who want to make this, peaceful place. And then there's going to be the underbelly of Star Atlas that shows up to make money. And then there's going to be anybody in between. And I think even with among ourselves, we all have different points of view about how we're going to show up in the game to that degree, without sacrificing, the brand of Rome. But some of us want to get a little bit dirty, and some of us want to do just mining and make money, so there's a little bit of everything for everyone.
Indeed.
And it's a good thing there's 3 different types of security zones. So everyone, if you can play your different play styles, it's just how much you're going to earn when you're playing it that way.
So that brings us to where we can talk about a couple things that were shared on the town hall meeting. But actually, before they do, we just mentioned Rome. So that's actually a good time to just share briefly, like the consoles here that are part of Metaverse Nomads. We are all of the Guild Rome. Rome has selected ONI as its faction. And we actually are in the process of accepting new citizens amongst our ranks. And so one of the things that we've done as a part of our promotional efforts is we have created a clip, which I will show you here now, which I'm pretty proud of. This was a collaborative effort between the consoles. So let's take a quick look at that.
Are you ready for the next evolution in gaming? Blockchain games are here. Why just play when you can play to earn? Enter the Star Atlas Metaverse with Rome. Star Atlas is a grand strategy game of space exploration, territorial conquest, political domination, and so much more. Rome is a premier guild of the ONI Faction within Star Atlas. Rome is here to play and to earn. Want to take part in the action? Rome is accepting new citizens. Join the Rome Guild on Discord to learn more at gorome.io.
So there you have it. So yes, if you are interested and you don't have a home yet and you're looking for a guild, you can check us out at gorome.io, and that will take you to our Discord, where lots of folks will be happy to reach out and answer your questions and tell you a bit more about us. So with that, that brings us to, we're almost done here. We've got just a couple more slides here, but it's important to mention that we had a town hall yesterday. There's going to be another one on Friday. But this was a Saturday town hall where there was 2 pretty significant things that came out of it. There's guild introductions and things like that. But the 2 big takeaways are that October priorities that are coming forth are, the first one is going to be ship missions. So now we're going to actually see before the month's end, unless, of course, there's some reason that technology challenges push things back a bit further. But we're going to see ship missions. And the things that they've shared are that the amount of Atlas, which is what you'll be earning for these missions, I don't know if we'll be earning NFTs and crew members and things like that. I think it's quite possible. Someone mentioned that was a possibility. But the main component that you'll be earning, the main thing that you'll be earning there from these missions is the in-game currency, which is Atlas. And the amount of Atlas that you can earn is going to be in direct proportion to the total value of assets that you're deploying. So that is one of the things that we did learn in this process. What do you guys think? Are you excited about that to be kicked off? And you have any thoughts about how you think ship missions will go?
I think what they've been shared up front is it's been scaled back a little bit. So they're going to be a little bit simple. What I anticipate is kind of some point and click stuff. I think they'll probably have us staking our assets into, some sort of smart contract to get a return. And the way I've described this in the past is this is DeFi through the lens of a video game, right? So I think we won't be doing too much interaction during the ship mission initially. I think that's going to come. And the other thing that has been shared is there will be some upkeep, fuel costs, maybe food costs. So there is going to be some cost, but the returns will offset the cost based on how I understood it. Oh, there you got it right on the screen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so basically what we were told is that nearly every game action will have a cost structure. Whether that happens right away, that is kind of the path, is that we will eventually see where you're going to have to pay for fuel for your ship. There's going to be some maintenance and repair costs. You'll have to upgrade aspects of your ship to be able to participate in certain missions and certain components. And there will be some food consumption. We don't know what else will play a role. And as you already mentioned, Banjo, it's going to be scaled down to begin with. The whole idea, and this is what Michael Wagner has emphasized when he shares this, is that the idea is to get people earning, to start seeing a return on the assets that you have purchased within the game. And I applaud that. There's so many projects that we've all seen where you buy these in-game assets and you're told what the utility is, but there's no actual path in sight where you're going to see a return on those assets that you purchase. So I really like that they're vocal and transparent about the fact that they really want that to be something that happens pretty quick.
Yeah, some people might look at it as a stepping stone towards the game, or something that might potentially increase the amount of time before we see the actual Unreal game. But a lot of the things that are happening inside this mini game will be happening inside Unreal Engine, but in like a much grander scale. So the numbers and all the strategies, they can start to be figured out now. And by the time we jump into the real game, we're almost going to have like 2 years worth of experience on a fresh game, or however long.
And they've said it's iterative, right? So it's one thing to wait for 4 years or 3 years for an end product and have to just sit there and look at pictures and talk about it. But we're getting the opportunity piece by piece or component by component to jump into the game and actually help test the game and make sure it's done right. So by the time we get to the final game, when it's exposed to the world at large, all the things that we would typically see in a AAA launch of a video game, let's say on the Xbox or PC, should be worked through because we're building it piece by piece and making money while we do it.
Yeah, so here's a question by Gervasio, and he asks if small or medium will be better for financial return. And that's quite a hotly debated one. Like, what's the value of 20 X4s versus like one Opel Jet? Will it just be like one click instead of 20? And will you be better just staking Polis and getting like one ship and waiting for like the full game if you don't have the capital to invest in medium?
Yeah, and I would like to mention too, is like if you bought a Calico Guardian, for example, and you're going to start the game, Wagner is not going to give you financial advice on how to optimize a return on that ship, even though what your ship cost is what's going to be relative to your earnings in the game. So the best option, in my opinion, would be to be in a guild that could get out to the 8x third zone where there's the potential of losing your NFT, but with greater rewards, so then you can make the money back and see a faster return on your investment. But there's going to be a return no matter what zone you're in. It's just going to obviously take longer. The closer you are to zone 1 versus zone 2, which is 3x, and then zone 3, which is 8x. So if you want to return that's within a short amount of time, 8x would be the place to go, and you would be able to do that with your Calico Guardian and a small group of people or a guild. So
yeah. And then
it's all about your risk tolerance. Go on, sorry.
No, right. You're on.
It's all about risk tolerance in a way. Like, you need to decide now really if you want to go hard in like the first zone, second, or like danger, because what you're going to buy is going to be able to like change your strategy. So if you're going to go into the deep space zone, it might be better to have multiple smaller ships. So it's like a cat with 9 lives. You can keep on going back. But if you have one shot and you miss it, then GG.
Yeah, then the other thing is we're also going to be earning during the minigame as well.
Right.
So I'm pretty sure once we start earning, those ships are going to go up. Because what Wagner already said is he's trying to shoot for a 1-year return on whatever you bought. So I just did a little bit of quick math. If you get the X5, I'm just dividing it by 12. It could be a lot less. It could be a lot more. You never know. But we're going to assume you get 12% back, and we're going off of that model. If you have an X5, which is $135, you're only getting $12 a month. If you have the Hero, which was $35, it came out to like $240 or $250, somewhere around there, plus or minus. But if you own the Guardian, it was coming out to $2,400 a month. So this is going, if it goes perfectly, You get 12, or you get your return back exactly if you divide it by 12. That's what you should be seeing. I think it's going to be a little bit less because 1 year is pretty optimistic. So I would probably assume maybe knock off maybe another like 10% off of whatever it could potentially be off of your ships. And then on top of it, he also said he's going to limit how many missions everyone's going to be able to do. We don't know if it's per day, how many missions per month. We don't know. So it's not going to, people can just start spamming, like buy like 50, like a quarter of the X5s and just keep running the missions all day long. That's also another thing you have to take account. So if you have like if you happen to have an X5, just put it to work. It's something. $1 a day is better than nothing.
Yeah, I want to emphasize a point here that it doesn't matter if you bought a lot or a little. They're assets that could potentially earn you money, but it's not. It's an inanimate object at any point in time, unless you're going to put it to work, just like a real life business or your actual home that you might want to rent out. If you're not going to do any work, then you're not going to see a return. So might be common sense, but a lot of people come into the NFT gaming space with these expectations. From where I come from, Axie Infinity, and then other games as well, where you can see these scholarship models or just these play to earn models. It's just like, oh well, I thought if I bought it, I'll be able to make it back. But the component of earning, it's the proof of work that needs to take place, that shows that that shows the return. It's not anything else but that, and it's just like real world. You got to put in some work, and then you get your return.
Yeah.
Another consideration, especially to that question about what size ships are going to be the sweet spot, and in the very beginning, it may be a real limited number of factors that make a difference. We do see here on the screen some of the things that are part of your cost structure. So there may be a perfect loadout. There may be a perfect ship for a mission and another ship that's overkill, where your cost to go on that mission just doesn't make sense to take the Guardian when you can complete the mission with an OPOD and save fuel and repair and everything else.
Right.
So that's a consideration for sure, is what is your cost and what is the perfect loadout that supports your perfect crew that gets that mission completed in the most efficient way, so that what you are getting paid is not consumed in the actual cost of the mission.
And then the only other thing I would add is time. So if you're someone that has no time, you probably don't want to ship missions. You probably want to stake. It really just comes down to everything on your end, financially, time-wise, time management. It just comes down to what works best for you to give it the biggest bang for your buck, not financial advice. Just throwing it out there.
Which is a good segue into the second priority for October, as stated by the company's CEO, and that is the Master DAO. Now, the Master DAO, as described by Wagner, is that it's the section of the DAO that essentially sits outside of the metaverse as a whole. So meaning it's this top layer that when you're having a conversation about this portion of the DAO, it's like we're talking about here. We're not in game, we're not in character. It's like, hey guys, I'm invested in this DAO. Let's talk about the monetary policy. Let's talk about treasury management and game-wide decisions. Is this cool? Do we need to nerf this? Do we need to buff this? What can we do to stabilize the economy for the greater good of Star Atlas? So for people that are invested in this high-level Master DAO, you stake your polis. That is what you are going to be participating in, is the conversation and the voting that surrounds that high level. As we can see, and also was mentioned in this town hall, that below this tier, you do have the things that drop in-game. So now we're talking about the faction DAOs, and we did cover some of this last week. You've got the different DAOs for the faction, and then you have the regions. And we don't know exactly how many regions are going to be within each of the factions. We see an example here of 4 and then 3 and 3, but we don't know. There could be 15 regions in a faction. We just have no idea. But there is a level of governance that goes even below these. And we didn't talk about this last week, but it's interesting how Wagner did mention that the lowest tier level of the DAO, and by the way, this is just kind of a more zoomed in shot that just kind of shows you, it's important to really understand this, really, of the different tiers of governance from the top, which is, hey, what's going on with the game and what does your vote and opinion say about it? what is going on with each individual faction at a top tier level, and what's going on with the regions. Before we go on from here, I just want to point out that with the factions, it's talking about faction-wide tax policies, warfare coordination, like what do you invest to protect your faction from another faction, I'm assuming, access to end-game content, things like maybe that Dyson Fear, maybe it's a faction-level decision, as well as deployment targets, what you're going to do as a faction to maintain your strength across the game. And then, of course, at the regional level, local taxation, local monetary incentives, and planetary restrictions. Because as it works below the region, you have a planetary system, then the planets, and as we mentioned last week, then you have the different land parcels, which we believe there's up to 64 within a planet. But this is the other part that I thought was fascinating. Beyond this, actually, this is just talking about here's what you do with your polis. You stake it, you earn, and you are able to submit proposals for change, and then also you have voting rights. What do you guys think about the idea of, like, if you polis-wise, do you believe you should have some at all levels? What are your thoughts about this?
So I really enjoyed this part of the town hall, yeah, and staking is one of my favorite things about Illuvium right now, even though there isn't many. But yeah, when this feature comes, loads of people will definitely take it up, and be interesting to see which direction the votes will go. I know the initial one might be to change the currency of the store to Atlas. So
yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I'd vote on that, but we have plenty of time to decide, and yeah, it's all quiet.
Well, I don't know that we have too much time, because I guess this is also, again, it's an October priority, so you will have the opportunity, ideally within October, to stake in the Master DAO. And one of the first votes, as you just mentioned, Vancy, is going to be around whether or not Atlas becomes the primary or the exclusive token by which you buy things in Star Atlas going forward instead of USDC. And we've seen in the Discord that there's a lot of thoughts and opinions for both sides, whether or not you want something that is so potentially unstable and something that is so easily manipulated as to dramatically change prices. And if you do pay, but the other side of it was too, and you guys probably have some comments on this, even if you do make that the token by which you make your purchases, you can still tie the value of items to USDC.
I think Polis, kind of like I said with the thimble, right, the pack light, I think Polis is going to be kind of a sleeper. I think people misunderstand or don't estimate how much they're going to want Polis, at least at the guild level, if they want to start controlling areas of space. And you know, the ability to tax regionally speaks volumes for what a guild can do in that piece of space if they want to continue to build out their guild or their corporation. So I think there's going to be a run on Polis in the next 30 to 60 days as people realize what they need it for.
Yeah, right. Especially as those votes happen. Like, I imagine if votes are looking like in favor of something like Atlas pumping after the vote happening, can you imagine like the initial pump up before that if it starts to get a bit of traction? It's interesting.
From a strategic standpoint, Polis is going to become a significant part of the political war. An example would be, imagine that you're in a star system, and even let's say that your guild controls 3 planets in that star system, and everything is equal. Let's say that you have some competitors that also own 3 planets and so on and so forth. Well, the one of those guilds that is actually staking the most Polis in that region can vote on things that favor their guild. And if they're consistently and able to do that, and perhaps even raise taxes on things that other guilds are involved in, it's kind of a way to slight them and make life more difficult while improving your returns, the things you can tax, the lower cost for you to produce goods based on the fact that you control governance in a region. So it's going to come into play in a big way. And that's just at the regional level. And then, of course, it goes to the faction level. And then at that top tier, which is the Master DAO that oversees it all.
And that's exactly my point, Jesse. I think what used to be talked about that I haven't heard Michael talk about much recently is that players will be able to lead a faction. So I think the people with the most pull lists, and I'm not sure if it will be done by a governance vote or just by the nature of having the most, but there will be players who are leading the faction and actually participating in the political play of a faction. It's not just some autonomous system that happens. There's going to be leaders from the player base that show up here.
Right. Now, that brings us to something that we didn't quite cover last week. We basically talked about the 3 tiers of governance. But as Michael pointed out on the town hall last night, there truly is the lowest tier. And that lowest tier, to me, is the most exciting. And I think it's also the one that is the most challenging for people to wrap their minds around. Because one of the big areas of focus as Star Atlas is beginning to unfold is guilds looking to form their own DAOs. Now, the challenge with that across the board is that you may, if you're going to do that now, and some have already started that process, you may be creating something that is not going to be of use to you later. For example, why would you want an outside DAO for your entire guild if, as Michael has put it, there's going to be a push button contract, decentralized autonomous corporation button where you push that button and then you are presented with a menu of choices about what you would like to include in your DAO, in your DAC in this case. So we've thought about that even as a guild, and we have contingency plans. We have things that we've thought out, but the truth is that no guild has this information yet about what's coming. But I think it's super exciting that Star Atlas is putting this in place so that you can bring groups of people together. You can decide things together. You can bring all of your resources together. Essentially, as it's described here, it says the guild systems of Star Atlas, the universe of Star Atlas, is expansive. It's a lonely, challenging journey tackling the countless perils alone. Players are encouraged to create factions. In this case, I'm assuming they're replacing that with guilds. Combine resources and compete collectively to outsmart other players. Through the implementation of decentralized autonomous corporations, DACs, entire space cities can be constructed in the microeconomy managed by those in charge. Careful, strategic cooperation enables players to dominate regions and the resources available therein. The Polis token will serve as a pivotal role in these cities, permitting the owners of political clout to impose taxes, fees, fines, rules, and laws on those outside of the DAC wishing to gain access to those entirely independent-owned cities. Folks, for those aren't really reading into this, this to me is where the true game is being played. And this is a big deal. And so for those that are creating all of these outside tokens, you may find yourself in a position where all of a sudden you're going to have to, hey guys, scrap that new plan. We just need to go straight up with one of the DACs that are built into the game now.
This is what I've been saying for a while behind the scenes is, Rome, like many of the other guilds, have been looking at DAOs and how do we incorporate a DAO to provide, some autonomous stuff for the guild, right? And with knowing what's coming on the horizon with Star Atlas and what they're putting into the DACs, I mean, you really have to wait to see what they do before you try to supplement it. Otherwise, you run the risk of creating friction, moving your value from your DAO into the game.
Yeah. Honestly, in my opinion, I think a lot of people. So first of all, you're not going to outsmart the team and the plan that they already had in place as a guild or as an individual. So they're giving you the whole toolbox that you're going to need to keep the value within its own ecosystem. That's genius. So now you have a deck that has hundreds of thousands of dollars of multiple different members of the guild, and it's all to their benefit. Only, in my opinion, if you're going to be on the outer edge of space, deep space, because that's where no rules apply for DAOs that they've created themselves, which is the Star Atlas team. But if the most transactions are going to take place within the first and second zones, then what you have is obsolete for almost a year. Because at what point are you going to go to the outer edge of space unless you have a Titan ship and you did the Dutch auction for 5 million, right? So you can just live out there comfortably. Unless we're going to all be able to get out there, we're going to be, maybe fighting one another. Then maybe the spaces aren't going to be as big as we think they are, and we're going to be coming across one another. But at the end of the day, as to everyone's points here, and to everyone who already created a DAO, like we have, like just said, our contingency plans, but we're gonna hit the ground running where we see the need, where the need is going to be for Rome and its members. Once we have more information on what the financial realm of all of this is going to be, because when it comes to finances, if you mess up once, then you lose a lot of trust and faith within your own community, and you can't have all these funds locked up forever because these members were planning on playing with these assets, and if they didn't have enough to buy what they wanted, they were going to be able to play. So there's a lot of variables here. But when it comes to the 8x deep space, your DAO would only be that would be the territory where you would see its full benefit. But that's not going to be here for a while.
Ray, you bring up a great point. And you said something at the beginning of what you just said there, is that Star Atlas has a vested interest in keeping the money in the game.
Right.
So the more they invest in that DAC, and they're going to keep the money in the game and circulating through the game instead of having to be brought through on-ramps and off-ramps to these individual DAOs. So,
right.
I hadn't looked at it from that perspective to that point, but I think it's absolutely a true statement.
And to add on, every game, as Axie Infinity has stated, and that's why I would behoove everyone to just explore the other NFT games, the blue chip guys, because they're the ones who are innovating, trailblazing the space for all other projects. So they're at the forefront of the bleeding edge, if you'd say, of technology building for all of us in the gaming community. And what's going to happen with Axie Infinity, similar to what they're structuring already, which is Star Atlas with Michael Wagner, is they're going to have a built-in scholarship rental system, which the community created itself, and then it brought attention to the team. And it wasn't something on their roadmap, but it's something that they can build, as we see Star Atlas doing this, and all with it, all in-house. So everyone's scholarship methods, or DAOs that are going to be doing anything of any sort of renting or lending, it's an opportunity for these businesses to make more money, essentially, to keep the project going for longer, and then to build it out faster sooner rather than later. And we'll all benefit from that as well, because of the nature of what crypto is, the blockchain, and then also NFT gaming as a whole.
Yeah, so here I've got a couple of bullet points that kind of outline what was shared. The big takeaways, at least in my opinion, when hearing the town hall. The first is that one-click deployment of smart contracts that allow for governance and treasury management alongside guild registration. This is big. This is going to allow for guilds to connect with folks that are perhaps investors that see the value in the metaverse as it expands, but don't necessarily want to be boots on the ground, that allow you to take advantage of that. The other thing mentioned here is that the DAC functionality is being developed by a third party. I love that Star Atlas team has the foresight to say, hey, look, we know our wheelhouse. We know the things that we're putting together, and there is some off-the-shelf technology that we can use that serves our needs. In the first place they're putting that into play is going to be tested through the Master DAO. Now, it was also mentioned that it may or may not be deployed alongside guild registration. That guild registration may be delayed until this full function DAC can be put into place. So we may not see this necessarily within October. We probably won't, in fact. We'll probably see the Master DAO functionality. That's where they'll be testing it and deploying it. And then perhaps in November or December, they may be ready for that DAC side of it. So again, I totally can appreciate why some groups and guilds are going out and trying to create their own stuff. But they might find at the end that was redundant, and they may actually have to scrap it, which would potentially cause more work.
Yeah, and I would like to add too that those who are worried about, as other commenters in previous live streams were mentioning, the outsourcing of third parties for either the art or the game development, this applies to that as well. And there's a lot riding on the success of Star Atlas for the long term. There's a lot of investors. There's a lot of VCs. There's so much on the shoulders of Star Atlas. You better believe that they wouldn't do their background checks and their due diligence to discern who is the perfect fit and who's not to get these jobs done. And that's why they have so much money. Right. And I love to see it that they're doing that. There's just a lot riding on this to not be a success. So I wouldn't make that such a big red flag in the eyes of this not working out. The economy is the number one component here for this to be a success. So if this is not going to work out, it doesn't matter what the ships look like. It doesn't matter how they fly. It doesn't matter how much food your race needs to eat. None of that really matters unless, like we see here and like we've gone through in other lives, that the tokenomics are just sound compared to anything else in the space next to Axie Infinity, in my opinion. Not financial advice.
Yes, indeed. Well, folks, that wraps up at least the slide deck that we put together that kind of covered what took place in this past week. And as you can see, a lot of stuff took place in this past week with Star Atlas. We do cover other stuff on the show. In fact, we had a special guest lined up for this week, and we actually had to postpone that. We'll be bringing that to you in the future, where we're taking a look at another project that's entering the space. But it just wasn't fitting to do that this week with so much important news being rolled out from Star Atlas. But with that said, we do have other projects that we already do cover, and we normally lead with that news, but we wanted to save that till last and lead with Star Atlas today. So I believe we've got who wants to go first with some news?
It was Illuvium, I believe, with Fancy Hat.
Yeah, I've got a couple things I can show.
All right.
So yeah, there is a couple things that were released this week. It seems to be just a short cinematic where you can see multiple sides of the battle arena, and yeah, it looks really great. The proportions all look
that's cool.
Yeah, I forgot it cuts me out when I play that.
That is cool.
Yeah, Illuvium, it's shooting away in the background. It's gonna come up on us soon, but yeah, looking forward to it.
Their game token spiked for a brief moment to 900 this past week. That was insane. And it's interesting to see how it's actually continuing to hold momentum with the value of their coin. Again, a game that's not yet released, and they even openly stated a month or so ago that it was delayed. And their community, which is now what, like 150 some odd thousand, continues to grow on Discord.
Yeah, and they did release that picture. There was an animation last week of this big tower where it was like going up, and you could see like a tiny person on one of the levels. And they applied a texture to it now, and yeah, this looks really cool, like a interactable game environment.
That is cool.
Yeah, and the market cap only being at below 500 billion, it just makes no sense at all. That this is an easy 4+ figure investment if you want to not play the game at all.
Yeah, well, the mini game is still coming up, so looking forward to more information on that. I am hoping for maybe early next year, end of this year, but I'm not too sure.
Did you also see the mobile game that's going to be coming out? That if what's done in the game itself, it'll transfer over into, it's more of like a Clash of Clans building placer. It was so that was shown, and there was video of that and coverage. So yeah, check that out on YouTube as well if you wanted to see what it looked like. We just we didn't have time to get it up here. And that's promising because now you'll have something to play by the end of the year, which they said is going to come out, and you'll be able to scan for alluvials, and you'll be able to place buildings down to harvest resources and to do certain things with, and all of that is going to transfer over into the game. So it's not a waste of time, and it's not like a filler type of game to play until the game comes out.
What was the date on that, Reed, again?
The end of the year. I wasn't. I didn't think too for a specific date, but I don't think they exactly gave one.
Yeah, and all of these projects are kind of on a loose timetable anyways. They're in a rush to start, but they need a finished product or they'll get laughed out. So,
yeah.
Do you want to take over on Axie, Ray?
Yeah, so on the Axie front, with the first image popping up here is the Series B funding round, which was a surprise, or it kind of came out of nowhere, and it took everyone for a spin. For the first rounding, the first series of A was 7 million, and you had like Mark Cuban and Thieves, a lot of well-known individuals from all different genres of investing in gaming. And here we are with the second, and it's the 1.5 million. So a lot of people say, why do they even need all this money? Because look at the treasury and look at the daily or monthly revenue that's just coming in, and it's just for, like we see on the bottom here, it's the funds will be the fuel and the growth of development to further development and for Ronin and everything that's coming with Ronin to scale for the digitalization of Axie Infinity.
Well, I just like to say, Ray, that I mean it's not necessarily have to be about them needing the money so much as it is about getting the game for a lot of these big, powerful people out there, right?
Exactly.
So, because of what they're doing, I mean, they could become a target, and the fact that a lot of these guys like Mark Cuban and them are putting their money down, that's going to be protection for Axie up until they become more decentralized,
Right, and these big companies here and investors, they're obviously knowing what they're doing. Someone in their company who's the head of figuring all this out and understanding it, and then relaying it back up to the CEO to sign off on all this. So it's definitely something that's worth looking into, because you follow the money. That's what I'll leave this on. For the next slide, we got the an update here for being able to purchase AXS and Small Love Potion via the Ramp third-party application. So it's not in-house. Axie did not create this; they just partnered up. So you would be able to do this for, I guess, for the time being, until the DEX, the official decentralized exchange, is built into the Ronin wallet. And then, so that's pretty cool. If you just
when you'll be able to swap the DEX is when you'll be able to swap SOP for AXS,
right? And then for all other NFT resources that would come out thereafter, which would be wood or any other resources in the game, or stone, gems, and of that nature. So that's pretty cool. And then for the next slide, we have you could zoom in, I guess, on your own screen. It's kind of grainy here, but here we have the top websites ranking for finance in the world, and Axie placed number 14 with the average time of 12 minutes and 12 minutes. And compared to anything above that, it's only OpenSea that has 10 minutes. And then number one, we have Intuit.com with 11 minutes. So,
what do you mean by minutes? What is that? What does that explain?
So the duration of the average person on the website.
Oh, okay.
So that speaks volumes to me, because if you didn't care, you thought it was a crap website, you wouldn't get on it. And if it's finance related, a lot's going on there. So that was my take on that.
Wow.
And and out of all websites in the world, Axie is top 400. So not finance specific, which is 14, but there was another photo that I couldn't pull up in time. It was the top 400 most visited website in the world. So that's pretty cool.
What's amazing about that is that, I mean, here we are, we're the Metaverse Nomads, and we're here focused on blockchain gaming. And it's just amazes me that how much on the forefront. If you're watching this now, it's because you're privy to what's happening in the blockchain world as well. And this shows you right here, compared to what else is going on in the world, how significant events are in this space right now. It's amazing.
Absolutely. Great point. And then I would stress that to everyone who's watching and who stuck with us to the end of this, because a lot of people only care for one game, and they're only exposed to one ecosystem, and they only have their money invested into one game, maybe because they can't afford, or they just don't have the bandwidth with their whole responsibilities of life to look at other games. But if you were an investor of stocks, you would damn well know everyone in the tech sector, because you would have to, or else you wouldn't be successful at it at all. Only unless you just did a shotgun approach and you just had enough money to do that to afford to lose it all. So, a lot of people at first, when they joined or heard of Rome as a guild for Star Atlas, the negative dialogue, or what was talked about, was that we're too spread out amongst other games. But if anything, that's a sign of strength in my eyes, because you would want the people who are going to be leading a guild of any sort for any game to have a grasp on what's going on in the space. So because this is real world here, as close as real world we're going to get when it comes to gaming and in investing alongside gaming.
Well, as you mentioned also, like, all of these different companies right now, these are pioneers, and a lot of the technology and a lot of the things that Star Atlas will use and companies after will use and other companies within the industry are learning from each other. So that's one of the reasons that we like to keep our ear to the ground and kind of look to see what's happening across the landscape.
Right. And not only that, it's about protection of assets. I mean, this is real money that people are putting into, and our job is to protect each other and protect our members. So you have to be concerned with what the competitors are doing, what's going on the other side of the hill, as well as, I mean, it's good to be diversified. Diversify into a lot of these different projects. You're not going to take a hit on one. When one of these games becomes so powerful, I mean, once again, that was a genius move they did with that funding round to protect themselves, because I mean they're so huge right now that they are something that the governments or something might start to target now.
Absolutely.
And so bringing in billionaires is a key move to protect them. And all of these projects are going to have to do something similar if they don't decentralize.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just like that old saying, "Don't keep all your eggs in one basket."
Absolutely.
There you go. Age-old quote. But just real quick to Michael in the comments, I'm not comparing Axie to any one of these different companies. I was just talking about the minutes that the average person is on the website compared to others. And the only ones that have more than 10 minutes was Intuit and OpenSea. So
yeah, it speaks to attention span and
exactly.
how much mind share Axie has right now.
Absolutely. And then last but not least, a couple. So second to last but not least, there was the Axie developer chat, which only 2 have taken place on October 4th, so just last Monday, and there was a lot of good info there. I just wanted to share that. So if you guys wanted to know more, or it's a good place to start. You'll get the most updated information, and then you could work your way backwards, join a Discord, or ask questions outside of what you're exposed to right now, and. So we could go on to the next slide, and that was one of the leaks. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say right quick, Ray, that last slide is really actually important, because a lot of people coming into the space are not crypto people, and they don't understand this. This isn't just about Axie. This is about crypto in general. You never share your secret phrase with anyone. That's like giving up the code to your door or something like that. Once you give it up, it's not yours. It's both of yours. You know what I mean? And that's a very important thing. I was happy to see them do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and thanks for pointing that out, because there's a lot of new people coming in, and they have it's a learning curve, to say the least.
Right.
To get to the point where you're investing, potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars over a course of a couple of years. So this was the leak of the new art and added utility of ears and eyes of these Axies that we play with to earn small love potions, or smooth love potions rather. And this was a little glimpse, a little tease, and this is what we're looking forward to. For those who are in the Axie Infinity community. So it's going to change the game when it comes to Battles V2. And,
so for those that don't know and understand what you're saying, the translation for me, who's like I'm completely amateur in this space, is that I guess each Axie has 6 traits. Is it 6? But I know that 2 of them, the eyes and ears, were kind of rendered somewhat useless. You didn't pay attention to those. And then now they're going to come into play. So that's going to change the whole landscape and what builds look like and all that stuff, right?
Absolutely. More aesthetics, but now they're going to have some utility. And it's.
But are you saying that this is only going to be for V2? That's not going to be in the current version of the game?
So that's up for a vote, maybe, if anything, but it depends on the team. If V2 is if they're gonna get rid of the legacy game, which we know now as not an option to play, then we're not gonna be able to see or play that version. Maybe down the line, but they're focusing on V2, and this is what the game is gonna be once it's released. So maybe you'll be able to just go back and opt to play the original, but this Origin V2 update is going to be coming in, and it's going to change the game when it comes to just, I guess, people's interest, in my opinion, of playing this type of game. If you didn't like card games from the beginning, then I guess not, but it definitely adds that extra layer of intrigue when it comes to just
yeah,
more
two new traits that matter. That's exponential in the
Yeah.
change. That's a big deal.
with how many cards they have, for sure.
Yeah.
There's going to be a
Yeah.
whole slew of combinations and team comps that are going to be coming out of there. And then, so the next slide here we have, which is the last, but not the least. We had Axie Infinity mentioned on the news. Play to earn more generally, but Axie Infinity was the only one mentioned, and it was pretty interesting to see that, because now we've broken the barrier into, quote unquote social media, or the real world, the mainstream news. Here, thanks. And so that was just that, and that would be all for Axie. If any ideas or any comments on that, go in today.
Just fascinating. Again, it's like watching Axie. My personal experience with it is, and I do have some scholar teams, but I know next to nothing more than just what it takes for me to run the teams that I have. But I have observed like things along the way that were milestones, or, oh, this is interesting. How are they going to overcome this? And they make adjustments and they make changes. And they really, again, I have to credit them as being an amazing pioneer in this space, because they're in uncharted waters. And so it's always fascinating to see what a company does when they're in uncharted waters and they come up against challenges, and you have the whole industry looking at you. It's like, oh, what are they going to do? They're going to fumble the ball? What are they going to do here? And Axie keeps finding a way to not only stay relevant, but to be significant and to continue to evolve.
Yeah, as another Axie investor, I just have to say that, I mean, they're the mover. They're the first mover, and they're obviously genius. The funding realm that they just did is another side of them being forward thinking and getting ahead of the game before these problems arise. And yeah, I'm happy. I'm a supporter, and I like what they're doing. I'm excited.
For sure. And then, but just one more thing. The Axie staking went live as well. I just totally skipped over that. And there's $2 billion now locked up at a 150-ish APR for every Axie staked. So if you have any and you didn't know that, you could go start staking and earn a return.
That's amazing. Yeah. So folks, man, we've almost gone 3 hours here. I think that concludes our news. But again, as you see on the screen there, like and subscribe. This was awesome. I enjoyed the show. I'm sure the rest of us that all got to chat and theory craft and look at all the stuff that's coming. It's exciting for us to do, and we appreciate all of you that stay on with us, especially those that are still here with us now. We hope this brings you some value. We love to get your comments and feedback. It really helps for us to kind of fine-tune the content that we want to focus on. Like and subscribe so you don't miss what we share on this channel. For those of you that don't know, we're actually active in streaming the town halls that take place. There's another one this Friday. So we will be streaming that town hall live here in the channel, which for some people, it's a little bit more convenient than actually going to listen to it on the Discord. So you can check out Star Atlas town halls here, stream live as they happen. Appreciate you, Azrite Arts, mentioning here that lots of information and tons of stuff to think about for sure. So, on this channel here, we're primarily focused on Star Atlas. We do have other projects that we're involved in, and so we do bring that to you. And we actually have special guests that are lined up that are talking about some of their own projects that they're working on in the space. And so that's something that we may bring even midweek, so it's separate from this regular show where we cover our normal stuff here. We are all representative. We're the consuls of the Guild Rome. And so we are accepting citizens, as you did see from that clip that we have from our promo, that you're welcome to go to gorome.io if you want to join our Discord and learn more. And with that, anyone have any final thoughts before we wrap up for the week?
I'll just hit it off with a thank you for all your support up until now. There's been a flood of new members into Rome, and they obviously aren't all here, but that's okay, because it's all up to the individuals and the community that we're building together, essentially, because it wouldn't be without any of you guys. If you haven't watched this and now you're hearing it, so we appreciate you all, and we look forward to continue building and learning as we go together to conquer the metaverse of Star Atlas and bring Rome to the stars.
Yes. And with that, we'll go ahead and close out for the week. Normally, we have just our short clip that we run, but again, we like our Rome trailer, so I'm going to close out with that one instead. And with that, after this, we'll go ahead and see you the same time, same bat channel next week on Sunday. We'll see you back here again. Cheers.
Are you ready for the next evolution in gaming? Blockchain games are here. Why just play when you can play to earn? Enter the Star Atlas Metaverse with Rome. Star Atlas is a grand strategy game of space exploration, territorial conquest, political domination, and so much more. Rome is a premier guild of the ONI Faction within Star Atlas. Rome is here to play and to earn. Want to take part in the action? Rome is accepting new citizens. Join the Rome Guild on Discord to learn more at gorome.io.